things off at number 10, we've got the Gorbals vampire. Back in September of 1954, the children from Gorbals in Glasgow went on a monster hunt looking for the creature that killed their two friends and drank their blood. For 3 nights, hundreds of children between 4 and 14 carried knives, stakes, clubs, and crucifixes and stormed into the creepy necropolis graveyard known locally as the City of the Dead. They were hunting a vampire that was said to be 7 feet tall with blood-red eyes and sharp iron teeth. The children called him the Gorbals vampire. This was actually a real event. On September 23rd, Constable Alex Deeprose was called to the City of the Dead because of a disturbance and found hundreds of armed kids looking for a vampire. Local news outlets picked up the story. Headlines said things like, "Amazing scene as hundreds of children rush cemetery." But the report about the 2 missing children ended up being false. The police heard of no missing children reports at the time. The Gorbals vampire was dismissed as an urban legend, and some say the kids were inspired by American comic books like Tales from the Crypt and The Vault of Horror.
Alright, next up at number 9 now guys, we have the Devils in the Bins. The House of the Bins is an old Scottish ancestral home. General Tam Dalyell was the head of the Dalyell family in the 17th century. Now while he lived there, Tam claimed that every night the devil visited him in his home for a game of cards. He said the devil usually won. Now in retrospect, this might have been a good thing. You see, one night the devil appeared as usual, and as usual the devil and Tam sat down to play cards. This night was different though. This night, for the first time ever, Tam seemed to be getting the upper hand. He was winning. As the game went on, the devil got more and more angry about this. Eventually, when the game looked lost for him, he flew into a rage. The devil then threw a single marble at Tam. It missed and instead landed in the sergeant's pond outside the house. Now for many years people laughed at Tam and dismissed his story as insane. Then, over 200 years later, the pond outside was apparently drained, and what should they find buried in the mud at the bottom but a single shiny marble?
He lost his marble! One marble. One marble? At number 8 we've got Abandoned Annie. The City Chambers is a famous building in Edinburgh, with ancient alleys that run beneath. The streets below the City Chambers are said to be haunted, and they attract psychics, ghost hunters, and mediums. This is because back in the 16th and 17th centuries, this particular area of Edinburgh was hit extremely hard by the plague. The streets used to be littered with bodies and sick people who were banished and left for dead. After the 18th century, the abandoned homes and alleys were sealed, but that doesn't stop people from venturing down there. There have been many strange noises and sightings reported, but most notably a psychic claims to have come into contact with the ghost of a young girl named Annie. Abandoned Annie is a story that began in 1992 after a Japanese psychic called Eiko Gibo went to the close as a part of a documentary on paranormal activity. When the group were touring the area, she came across a room that she at first was too afraid to enter. She said the room had a terrible feeling of sickness, hunger, and cold. But then Eiko went inside the room because she said she was invited by the ghost of a little girl named Annie who had died of the plague. Annie grabbed her hand and said that she had been abandoned by her family and that she had lost her doll. Eiko later went back to the room with a Barbie for Annie to play with, and since then, visitors to Annie's room are told to bring a gift for her. There is now a pile of toys created by people who have visited her room. To this day, people report feeling sick, uneasy, and cold while visiting Annie's room, despite the fact that there is no historical record of any girl named Annie, and the story has been dismissed as a popular urban myth. An urban myth that actually has a happy purpose, apparently. Along with toys, people leave money for Annie, and at the end of every year, the money is counted and given to the sick kids hospital. So far, Annie has raised more than £45,000 for other sick children.
Next up at number 7 now guys, we have the A75. Now that is the name of what's said to be the most haunted road in Scotland bar none. It runs through the county of Dumfriesshire and has been a hub of reports of supernatural activity over the years. It's actually attracted paranormal investigators to it from all over the world. Kathleen Crone is the founder of Mostly Ghostly, great name by the way. Now she said there have been screaming hags, eyeless phantoms, and a menagerie of unearthly creatures witnessed on this famous road. In 1962, perhaps one of the most famous sightings occurred on the road. Derek and Norman Ferguson were driving along the road when a large hen apparently flew into the windscreen of their car. They then saw huge cats and other monstrous creatures pass by them, as well as a phantom furniture van, whatever that is, all of which vanished into thin air. In the years since then, the number of stories has grown to the point where some truck drivers actually avoid the A75 altogether.
Alright, it is time for number 6, the Boneless. The true story of the Boneless comes from the Shetland Islands, a group of small islands off the coast of Scotland, where the inhabitants were once terrorized by a ghostly blob. Yes, you heard that correctly. Stories about a ghostly apparition called the Boneless, and sometimes a Frightening, have been whispered whispered on the Shetland Island for years now. It's based on an account found in the book Shetland Traditional Lore by Jesse Saxby. Although no one could describe the apparition properly, people called it the Boneless because witnesses say it looked like a giant glowing white blob. Others said it looked like a jellyfish or a slimy white cloud. The Boneless would appear pressed up against windows and it never made a sound. It could move though. Apparently it could move faster than a dog. If you had happened to find yourself face to face with the Boneless, you would cower in fear and often die of fright. There's a story about one boy who was dragged by the Boneless to the edge of the cliff. He described it as smelling like rotting flesh. As he heard the waves crashing below, he grabbed the rocks and hung on for life. The Boneless rolled off the cliff and disappeared, and the boy managed to drag himself back to his home to tell his parents. Next, at number 5, we've got the haunting of Castle Stuart. The story goes like this. The Earl of Moray inherited Castle Stuart from his father. He wanted to rent it out, but he couldn't because the castle had such a bad reputation for being haunted. So the Earl tried to improve the castle's reputation by offering a reward to any man who was brave enough to spend the night in the castle. News about the reward spread and eventually 4 men agreed. A minister, an elder in the Presbyterian church, a local shoemaker, and the last was a large man named Rob Angus. The deal was each of the men had to spend an entire night alone in a haunted room. Once they were inside, the door would be locked and wouldn't be unlocked until the next morning. The minister fell asleep in the room and had a dream about a blood-splattered man who sat down next to him. When he woke up, no one was there. The elder had a similar experience. While he was reading his Bible, the door to the room sprang open, and in walked a man covered in blood. The man drew his dagger on the elder, who fainted. He was found the next morning in complete shock. When it was the shoemaker's turn, he heard the door to the room open. A tall man with hooves for feet appeared in the doorway. The being jumped at the shoemaker and he fainted in terror. He was found unconscious on the floor the next morning. And lastly, it was Rob Angus's turn. Rob Angus was a big, strong Scotsman who said he wasn't afraid of anything. As the servant closed the door to his room, he said, "You will find me as I am, or dead." When the servant returned in the morning, the furniture in the room was broken and all over the place, but there was no sign of Rob. But then, the servant looked out the window and saw Rob Angus lying on the ground, dead. At some point, Rob Angus fell out of the window or was pushed. Various sightings and reports of paranormal activity over the years have given Castle Stuart the reputation of being one of the most haunted castles in the world.
Coming at number 4 now, guys, we have Arthur's Seat Coffin. Coming at number 4 now, guys, we have the Arthur's Seat Coffins. This one comes from Edinburgh. Arthur's Seat is a rocky hill there, sort of a landmark, if you will. One day in 1836, 5 local boys discovered an entrance to a small cave on the rugged northeastern face of that famous hill. There, they found some intricately carved miniature figures set in coffins. I know, that's incredibly creepy. The 17 coffins had actually been left undisturbed for an unknown amount of time. Each casket contained expertly carved human effigies, creepily dressed in very unique clothing. They had painted black boots on and twisted facial expressions. In the years since then, these creepy coffins have defied all attempts to explain them. This has opened the door to a number of creepy urban legends surrounding them. The most popular is that they were created to commemorate the 17 victims of the notorious Edinburgh murderers and grave robbers Burke and Hare. I'm no relation to that Burke though. Okay, maybe somewhere along the line. Awkward.
Getting close now. At number 3, we've got Sawney Bean, Scotland's most famous cannibal. Not much is known about Sawney Bean, but he was said to have been born in the late 15th century. He married a woman who was said to be a witch and moved to Benane Cave in Ayrshire with his new wife. Sawney supported his wife by being a robber, but rather than risk being caught, Sawney murdered his victims and disposed of the evidence by eating the remains. The couple started having children, a lot of them, 14 to be exact, and fed them a high-protein diet of human flesh. Eventually the children grew up and had their own children born of incest, and before long the cave was inhabited by an entire extended family of 48 cannibals, all with a taste for humans. The family remained undiscovered and would ambush unfortunate victims, steal their money, and eat them. Local authorities would find decaying body parts, sometimes pickled, washed up on the surrounding beaches. Eventually King James of Scotland heard about the Sawneys and orchestrated a 400-men manhunt. They found the cave full of human remains and stolen valuables. Sawney Bean was reportedly executed for the mass murder of over 1,000 people, but most historians believe that Sawney never existed, and his story was nothing more than an urban legend.
Moving on to number 2 now, we have Gilly Doo. I think I'm pronouncing that right. In Scottish legend, he's a solitary Scottish male fairy that lives alone in the forest. He disguises himself in trees so as not to be seen by humans. His light green skin and long branch arms make it almost impossible for people to spot him. However, it's important to note that the Gilly Doo is usually only this elusive to adults. You see, he's been known to appear and interact with friendly children. Now you should know that doesn't mean that every interaction is a good one. He has been known to prey on people lost in the woods, killing or enslaving them. Perhaps the strangest thing I read about this creature is that he is said to collect the teeth of children to perform protective magic on them. This has led some people to believe that the Gilly-Doo actually gave birth to the legend of the Tooth Fairy, a much lighter story. I think we can all agree. I don't think the Tooth Fairy has killed or enslaved anyone. If you know otherwise, let me know. And finally, at number 1 now, we have the Mackenzie Poltergeist. This is perhaps the most famous ghost story in all of Scotland. The Black Mausoleum is the name of a tomb in Edinburgh's Greyfriars Cemetery and has become famous as the home of an evil paranormal entity. Over the years, visitors have reported feeling extreme hot spots and cold spots. They leave with cuts, bruises and burns on their body. Photographic evidence for the legend includes pictures of these injuries as well as pictures from inside the tomb that some claim show an unidentified shape. Others have reported seeing a white figure in the dark, smelling strange odours and hearing knocking noises under the ground and even from inside the tomb itself. If that wasn't enough for you, locals have gone to the grave some days to find dead animals in front of the Black Mausoleum. Some people have even claimed to have been possessed, which led to the grounds being exorcised twice, both unsuccessfully apparently. In the past few decades, it seems as though the Mackenzie Poltergeist has begun to spread. Poltergeist activity has been reported in 4 different houses around the graveyard, and in 2002 a large fire broke out in the residences behind George Mackenzie's tomb.
Starting us off at number 10 are Lytuvans. This urban legend is from Latvian folklore, and Lytuvans are said to be the souls of a killed person, meaning if you were murdered, hanged, drowned, you could be one of these Lytuvans. These souls are cursed to remain on earth as long as their fate permits them to, and in some parts of Latvia they believe they're the souls of unbaptized children, so it really depends on the version you grew up with. They're meant to be extremely dangerous, and I'm not surprised. I mean, if I was stuck on Earth for centuries when I didn't want to be, I'd start causing shit as well. I think anyone would. They've been known to attack domestic animals and humans, and a common method for them is sleep paralysis. They strangle us in our sleep, but you can escape the attack if you move the toe on your left foot. Oddly specific, but facts are facts, guys. You'd think you'd be safe if you just locked the doors before bed, but wrong again. They can fit through keyholes and slits under doors, so you're out of luck there as well. Looks wise, they appear as labored, small but fast children. Very rarely do they look like ugly witch-like women, but they can. The deaths they cause are painful, you guys, and I kid you not. The victim loses all their strength, they get super tired, they're basically drowning in sweat, and they can't move since the Lytuvan is lying on top of them, and with that you slowly lose the ability to breathe, bit by bit, until your heart stops beating. Coming in at number 9 is the Lake Somin monster. Located in Lake Somin in the village of Lukiv in Ukraine, this monster is meant to be 30 feet long with the body of a crocodile and the head of a snake. He makes this deep wheezing, groaning sound that vibrates throughout the whole lake, and he lives deep within the underwater caves. He lies waiting for his victims at night and dusk and comes out of the lake to drag his victims to their deaths. They can eat horses, humans, sheep, cats, dogs, anything. The first story about the monster was before World War I, where a village leader refused to pay his fishing taxes because he thought there was a strange serpent in the lake. Everyone was terrified, and an expedition was even launched but was called off when the war started. Stories arose again during World War II of a crocodile-like beast, and another expedition began, but no creature was ever found. At number 8 we have the Gnome King Kyrie. According to this Dutch urban legend, Kyrie was the king of all the gnomes that live in North Brabant in the Netherlands. From their base they travelled quite a bit, and legend has it King Kyrie lived on Gnome Mountain, ironically also known as Devil's Mountain. I was gonna try saying it in the actual Dutch word, but I knew I would just completely bottle it, so I just didn't even bother. The gnomes weren't evil, surprisingly. They would help farmers in their homes as well as people in other villages. They hated being seen, so would only travel at night, but if you were unfortunate enough to see a gnome, they'd have you for it. One farmer who apparently saw them was made blind in one eye just for glancing at them. The king ended up being shot by a hunter in the 1950s, and a statue of him was actually erected in the village they lived in called Hoogloon. I know I said that wrong, but I really tried. Filling our number 7 slot is Peiko. This urban legend comes from Finland, and I'm so happy to include this one because I've literally seen so many comments asking for Finnish urban legends, so at least I can semi-make it happen for you guys. And I don't know if I saw a lot of comments or just the same users commenting the same thing. But anyway, Peikko is said to be a massive creature similar to a giant who can turn invisible at will, change size at will, sleep in the form of a rocky landform for hundreds of years, and worst of all, he's been known to make holes in children's teeth. Since every country has their own version of the boogeyman, the Peikko is Finland's inspired version of it. He kidnaps children, and do we really need to go into what he does with them? Like, I think we all know. Let's just skip the atrocities. We don't have to talk about that. We don't. I don't need to imagine that, neither do you. Now at number 6 is the Enchanted Moura. Hailing from Portugal, the legend of the Enchanted Moura is very popular in local folklore there. Moura is an extremely beautiful and seductive shapeshifter that lives under an occult spell that was put on her against her will. She lives in places that represent boundaries like gates and doorways and can build with incredible strength. She usually shows up combing her hair and singing. Sometimes her hair is blonde, sometimes it's black, and if you promise to help set her free, she promises to give you treasure in return. These magical maidens were said to be the souls of the girls left behind to guard the treasure their partners hid before going to Moura. They guard castles and rivers and are actually not evil. I know most female urban legend appearances are evil, but I mean they're pretty okay. I don't want to confuse people, it isn't one person, there's many versions of this Enchanted Moura. There's many maidens. It's not just one, but they're all Moura. I'm gonna stop talking now. Coming in at number 5 is the Dancing Policeman. This urban legend may be one of the most well-known ghosts in all of Serbia. Back in the 60s, at the busiest intersection in Belgrade worked traffic policeman Jova Bull. Every day he wore a full white uniform. I'm talking white gloves, white hat, white everything. And his hand gestures were so elegant it was almost artistic. It was like a dance. Watchers were left breathless. It was like he was conducting a ballet, not cars. His face and smile drew you in, and it's like he was everything you wanted no matter who you were. If you violated regulations, he'd just wag a finger, and he'd even blow kisses at people. He stole the hearts of so many he started appearing on TV and in the newspaper. The mayor of London even invited him to London after seeing him once, not even meeting him. He was less liked in London since his movements weren't as feminine as his counterparts, and the authorities also hated him. He didn't want to rise up, he just loved his job and wanted to keep at it. Even after being moved to a less busy intersection, he drew people in. In the end, the authorities had had enough of him and made him retire early, and he died as the keeper of a small parking lot. They say you can see his spirit hover in the Belgrade intersection and the London one like an invisible ballet dancer. Honestly, this is a ghost I'd actually like to see. He seems very unproblematic and not scary. And I like a good traffic controller. I like nice traffic. Bad drivers are a no. At number 4 is the Petrin Fire. This urban legend is from the Czech Republic and it centers around Petrin Hill. Nowadays it's a lovely park and garden where you can go for a nice date or romantic stroll, but being there at night is a lot more of a risk. Despite its reputation today, there used to be a pagan grove on the hill in the middle of a group of lime trees. In the middle of this grove was a huge sacrificial altar where it said the pagan priests used to burn young virgins for their gods. When Prince Boleslav came to power, he radically went after the pagans, and their altar and grove were both destroyed and a church was built nearby instead. But the pagan faith was more resilient than that. It wasn't just gonna go away because this altar was destroyed. The pagan gods made themselves known on the hill by creating random fires that would magically contain themselves. But they weren't just fires. If people looked inside them, they would see the grimacing faces of all the pagans the prince had killed. And these fires are still happening till this day at night. They happen at random times and can last for around 20 minutes. If any of you subs are from Czech Republic and are watching this, can you let me know if you've seen these fires? I really need to know. Thank you. Filling at number 3 slot is the house on Rataskäivu Street. This one comes from Estonia and follows the story of a house located on Rataskäivu Street. The man who lived there was trash. Honestly, he wasted all of his money and honestly had no future, and on top of that he was heavily in debt. One night he thought enough was enough. Life didn't seem worth living anymore, and so he tried to commit suicide. Just as he was about to do it, a stranger broke into his room asking for one thing. Let the man get married on the top floor of his house, and if he agreed, he would be rich beyond his dreams. But there was one condition: no one could eavesdrop on this wedding. If they did, it would cost the man his money and the eavesdropper their life. And did I mention this stranger was the devil himself? Sorry, I should have included that earlier, but you know, I like the build up. Anyway, the night of the wedding, the guests arrived, but you couldn't see them. You could hear them, but they were invisible, enjoying the festivities somewhere in the ether. The lights were on, the music was playing, the house was shaking like the weight of the guests was overloading it. As it became 1 a.m., everything stopped. Everything was silent. The man was expecting his fortune, but as he was making his way upstairs, his butler got sick and died. He'd been eavesdropping on the wedding, and we knew what would happen if that happened, guys. We were forewarned. That room of the house that he died in is said to be walled up now, and the window facing the street is also boarded up. Never make a deal with the devil, people. It literally never ends well. Ever. Did I mention ever? Because it doesn't. How many videos of this do I have to make? No deal with the devil. Thank you. Now at number 2 is the pastor's wife. This legend is pretty tragic, I'm not gonna lie, and it hails all the way from Denmark. Way back when, a woman married a pastor, but she was hiding a massive secret. Under no circumstances ever did she ever want kids, so much so, she found a witch who told her she was gonna have 7 kids in the future. The witch gave her 7 stones to throw into a well, and that would prevent all the pregnancies. She did it and resumed normal life. Her and the pastor went for a walk one night, and he realized his wife didn't have a shadow. Everyone has a shadow, why the hell isn't she? He realized she must have done something horrifically evil for this to happen and tried getting her to confess to him, but she refused. He kicked her out of their house and forced every villager to refuse her. He cursed her by saying it's more likely a red rose would grow out of his stone dining room table than for her to redeem herself. Harsh words. Absolutely crushed, the woman left the village and found a priest in another village nearby. He said to redeem herself she had to stay in the church overnight with a book he had given her, and that she can't give the book to anyone no matter what because many will be asking for it. And he was right. That night she was haunted and spat on by all the kids she would have had. They verbally abused her for being so selfish, but she got through it and the next day she was redeemed. But the priest said the only catch now is that you only have 1 day to live. She rushed back to her village hoping to see her husband one last time, but again no one let her in except one kind soul. She died behind an oven in that person's house, and the next day the pastor was heart attack level shocked when he saw a red rose coming out of his stone table. Overcome with heartache, he searched for his wife everywhere, and when he found out she was dead, he went mad and died soon after. I have no words. It hurts me. It hurts me here. And finally, at number 1 is Polodnica. Hailing from Slovakia but appearing in a lot of Slavic folklore, Polodnica is the noon demon, also known as Lady Midday or the Noon Witch. She mostly appears during the summer as a beautiful young woman in white, or an old hag, or even a 12-year-old girl who roams fields in the countryside. She takes the form of dust clouds and then appears literally out of nowhere and is always carrying a pair of shears or a scythe. She'll trick workers on the field by asking them a hard question, and if they answer it wrong, which most of them do, she'll quickly just change the subject and then behead them. Literally savage. She either beheads you, or if she's having a good day, she'll just give you a terminal illness. I don't know which one is better, to be fair. Neither really. One's a sudden death and the other is a slow burner. I don't know which one I'd choose. Which one would you choose? Probably the beheading, I feel. But then, I'd have more time with it. Either way, let me know in the comments. She's known as a personification of getting sunstroke, and her presence has been linked to causing heat stroke in many people now. She causes aches in their neck, and if it's bad, one can even go mad.
Number 10. Pavegoli Island, Italy. Pavegoli is one of the scariest haunted islands in Europe. A series of mysterious activities were detected on the island, and that is probably the main reason why the island is closed for visitors today. The island was the place where victims of the plague were quarantined and infected dead bodies were disposed of. It is said the remains of over 100,000 souls are buried there, and let me just say, that is a lot. The island was later the site of a nursing home and psychiatric hospital. Now it's rumored that it had a mad doctor who carried out unconventional treatments on his patients here before eventually throwing himself from the church's bell tower or being pushed.
whichever you believe. Due to this, the bell was later removed, but people from the surrounding islands claim to have heard it echoing in the night on multiple occasions. The hospital eventually closed and the island was abandoned in 1968. Number 9. Hellfire Club, Ireland. No, not the Hellfire Club you're thinking of. This has nothing to do with Stranger Things, unfortunately, and let me just throw in, Eddie deserved better. Anyway, the Hellfire in Dublin was built as a hunting lodge where Dublin elites used to gather in the 1700s. The ruins of the club are located on top of Montpelier Hill overlooking the adjacent Massey Woods. There have been numerous stories about black masses, animals, and even human sacrifice rituals happening in the Hellfire Club, but that's not all. Multiple witnesses claim to have seen a satanic-like creature with a human appearance and cloven feet. So, literally, the devil. You mean the devil. Another common visitor is the ghost of a young lady who is believed to have been burned inside a barrel and rolled down the hill. Number 8. Pripyat, Ukraine. Pripyat is a small town in northern Ukraine that was the closest town to the notorious Chernobyl power plant. Once upon a time, Pripyat was a nice little town that was home to 50,000 people. However, after the Chernobyl disaster, everything changed. Needless to say, no one lives here today and it's dangerous to visit even after all these years after the explosion. Now there are many ghost stories surrounding Pripyat. One story is that one of the nuclear physicists was measuring the radiation readings when he heard someone screaming inside the plant. This event happened in 1997, 11 years after the explosion. He asked the employees about it and they told him that he was the first one to enter the control room in 11 years, and that the only way to get in was through a thick metal door. Now even if someone did come inside, they would inevitably trigger an alarm that goes off. Even more interestingly, later that evening, the employees saw a floodlight turning on in the installation room. They thought there may have been a power surge, but seconds later the lights were turned off. Spooky. Number 7. Castle Ryzel, Poland. This red structure looming over Ryzel has had a horrifying dark past. The town was burnt down in the 1800s and a woman named Barbara Zdunk was arrested for committing arson and was later accused of witchcraft. In the castle, she was tortured and taken advantage of on multiple occasions and eventually gave birth to 2 children. Many people claim that the ghost of Barbara and her children haunt the castle today, and rightfully so. A strange smell of perfume was reported in the castle on multiple occasions. Doors that were previously locked were found open the next morning, and some people even claim that they were touched by a strange force in the castle. Number 6. Witch's Castle, Austria. Witch's Castle, also known as Musham Castle, has a gruesome history. Hundreds of people were imprisoned, tortured, and had their lives ended inside these walls during the witch hunts of 1675 and 1690. Those who did escape the hangings had their hands cut off, while others were branded by hot irons. Now, after the witch hunting was over, they went back to normal. But then came another issue: werewolves. In the 1800s, many cattle and deer were found dead near the castle. So these people jumped to the logical conclusion that this was being done by werewolves. This led to some residents being tried and executed in the castle's dungeons as the full moon culprits. Staff and visitors swear they have felt someone's breath on them, been touched, heard banging sounds, footsteps, and doors slamming, and there's also been rumors of people hearing the sounds of the witches screaming, and werewolves apparently still prowl the grounds. Number 5. The Houska Castle, Czech Republic. The Houska Castle is located in a forest north of Prague and is one of the most haunted places in the world. According to the legend, on this exact spot, there was a huge hole in the ground which was considered to be the gateway to hell. Nice. Paranormal activities were disturbing the region, and the Bohemians thought they would solve their problems if they covered the hole, which honestly sounds like a good idea. That's why they built the castle. Now, no one actually wanted to build this castle and get close to this portal, so they used prisoners to help. Hundreds of prisoners were forced to go into the pit to build the foundation for the castle. However, when they were taken out of the hole, they looked like old men. Later on, this castle was the center of a German occult dabbling during World War II, and multiple dead bodies of German soldiers were found on the site. Witnesses reported several different forms of paranormal activities, and some even claimed that the site contains the remains of a demonic beast who escaped the pit. Yeah. No thank you. I'm good. Number 4. Dracula's Castle in Bran, Romania. Bran Castle is a castle in Romania that is a national monument and landmark in Transylvania. It's commonly known outside Transylvania as Dracula's Castle because it's the only castle in all of Transylvania that actually fits Bram Stoker's description of Dracula's castle, even though he never visited Romania. Many historians agree that Vlad III, Dracula, never set foot in Castle Bran, which was neither a friendly place for him to visit nor under his rule. Nonetheless, the castle is still creepy. The castle has 57 rooms and of course a secret passage. While being beautiful during the day, the castle takes on a whole other look at night. In the villages near Bran, there is a belief of the existence of evil spirits called ghosts or stigoi. Until half a century ago, it was believed that there existed certain living people who were leading normal life during the day, but during their sleep at midnight, their souls left their bodies and haunted the village, tormenting people in their sleep. So yeah, I'd stay away from this castle at midnight. Number 3. The Edinburgh Vaults, Scotland. The Edinburgh Vaults are a series of chambers formed in the 19 arches of the South Bridge in Edinburgh. They were a part of the South Bridge Act 1785 and was completed in 1788. For around 30 years, the vaults were used to house taverns, workshops for cobblers and other tradesmen, as well as storage space for said merchants. In later years, the vaults were a hotspot for the homeless and for criminal activity such as illegal gambling taverns, illegal whiskey distillery, and body snatchers stored corpses there overnight. In the late 19th century, the vaults were closed off, but opened again in 1988 when a local man crawled through a narrow passageway in one of his buildings and rediscovered the rooms underneath the bridge. Witnesses claim they can feel cold gusts of air, to hear voices, and see and sense an intangible presence. Now, some ghosts are bolder there, like Jack, who grabs visitors' hands in the wine vault. Another, more menacing presence is known as Mr. Boots, an unkept man so named for his tall boots. Now, Mr. Boots lurks in the back section of the vault and has been known to push and throw rocks at visitors. Some have claimed to hear his footsteps on the cobbles and his echoing voice cursing throughout the chambers. Number 2. The Old Vicarage, Sweden. Borgvattna is a small village in northern Sweden. It only has 50 residents, a church, and a vicarage. That old vicarage is extremely haunted, perhaps the most haunted place in Sweden. In 1930, the owner saw a lady dressed in grey at the house. She was walking slowly towards him through the big hall, but decided to take a turn into the expedition room, the office where the vicars used to work. He wanted to talk to her, ask her what she was doing inside his house, but when he got to the expedition room, there was no one there. A couple moved in 1936 and they heard footsteps walking through the house and doors were opening and closing as if someone was moving from one room to another. When they wanted to welcome the visitor, they saw nobody. The wife was home alone one day when she heard music coming from there behind a closed door. She opened the kitchen door and the music suddenly stopped. The same thing happened later when her husband was back home. Then in 1945, another man moved in and he brought a rocking chair. One night when he read a book in it, he was pushed off the chair so violently that he fell to the ground. When he tried again, it was as if he was blocked from it and he fell again. Then the rocking chair also started moving on its own. Now, each room has its own little story with guests reporting seeing shadows, hearing furniture move, and much, much more. And coming in at number 1 is Dragslund Castle, Denmark. This 13th century castle was built by former bishop of Roskilde and has been leveled by invading Swedish armies and rebuilt several times. During the Reformation, the castle was seized by the Danish king, who laid claim to all church properties. The bishop was imprisoned in the castle and left to die. Guests claimed to hear moaning and wailing in the area of the castle's prison cells. Another lingering prisoner still haunts the grounds, the Earl of Bothwell, husband of Queen Mary of Scots. He was captured in Norway, imprisoned, and tortured to death in the castle. It's said that his spirit appears in the courtyard riding a horse-drawn carriage. 2 female ghosts also haunt the castle, a lady in white and a lady in grey. The first is the ghost of a nobleman's daughter who fell in love with a castle worker. Her father forbade the relationship and ended her life for not obeying his demands. He chained her to a post in the castle cellar and built a brick wall around her. A skeleton was found when the castle was modernized, lending truth to the legend. The second ghost is an old woman who died after castle doctors removed an infected tooth. While it relieved her pain, the extraction was infected, causing her death.
And we're kicking off this list with the Scandinavian Ganganger. Ganganger, that's a hard word to say. might be mispronouncing it. Originating in the folklore of Scandinavia, particularly Norway and Sweden, the Ganganger is believed to be the embodiment of a deceased individual who returns from the grave to haunt the living. These spectral beings typically manifest with a pale complexion, dressed in tattered burial garments. They're often associated with unfinished business or unresolved grievances, seeking retribution or closure. It kind of sounds like a normal ghost, but they actually are very, very different. Legend has it that encountering one of these beings brings great misfortune and even death to those who cross its path. Instead of just appearing in the background of photographs or whispering incoherent sentences into spirit boxes like your regular old vanilla ghosts, the Ganganger are malicious spirits that can actually cause physical harm. The mere sight of these spectral beings is said to invoke a profound sense of dread and foreboding, as they are believed to possess this malevolent intent, even towards loved ones. Efforts to ward off or appease one of these beings have been present in Scandinavian folklore for centuries. Traditional rituals like offering prayers, performing protective charms, or conducting burial rites were believed to provide some defense against their haunting presence. At number 9, we have A Letter from a Blind Man. This one is short, but man, is it chilling. A dark tale that began circulating just after one of the darkest periods in modern history. In post-World War II in Berlin, a time plagued by scarcity, poverty, and hunger, a tale spoke of a young woman who encountered a blind man navigating his way through a bustling crowd. The two ended up striking a conversation, leading the man to ask if she could deliver a letter to the specified address on the envelope for him. Considering it was conveniently on her route home, she agreed to help. As she turned to walk away, though, she craned her head back momentarily to see if there was anything else she could assist the blind man with, and to her astonishment, she caught sight of him hastily making his way through the crowd without his dark glasses or his white cane. Understandably, she was pretty suspicious at this point and headed over to report the incident to the authorities. The police swiftly raided the address mentioned in the letter, where they uncovered a gruesome discovery. In the home were piles of human flesh intended for sale, and within the envelope entrusted to the young woman was a chilling message that read, "This is the last one I'm sending you today." The Beast of Gevaudan, terrifying creature's tale, has become a blend of fact, fiction, and folklore. The legend speaks of a monstrous beast that haunted the rural landscape of Gevaudan, a region in south-central France, during the mid-18th century. According to the stories, the creature possessed an insatiable appetite for human flesh, targeting women and children as its preferred victims. Descriptions varied, but many accounts depicted a fearsome creature resembling a massive-sized wolf or a hybrid predator, possibly with blood-red eyes and a black stripe running down its back. Its ruthless attacks, coupled with its supposed invincibility against conventional weaponry, left the people in a state of dread, desperation, and as the legend grew, so did the attempts to bring an end to the creature's reign of terror. Countless hunters, soldiers, and villagers embarked on these journeys to track down and take out the beast, yet the creature thwarted their efforts time and time again, evading traps, bullets, and even organized hunts. The legend reached its climax when a local hunter named Jean Chastel claimed to have slain the beast using a silver bullet. Over the years, the legend of the Beast of Gevaudan has been dissected by historians, mythologists, and enthusiasts, giving rise to various theories about the true nature of the creature. And apparently this did happen, it's just we're not quite sure if it was some sort of paranormal creature, like a werewolf, or if it was just a particularly large rogue wolf. Number 7, the Well to Hell. The Well to Hell urban legend was spread through whispers, emails, and internet forums. According to the legend, in 1989, a team of Russian scientists drilled a hole deep in an unknown location in Siberia, and as they delved deeper into the Earth's crust, they allegedly pierced a barrier that unleashed unimaginable horrors. The story goes that as the drill reached an astonishing depth, the temperature spiked dramatically, and strange sounds began emanating from the hole. The team lowered a heat-tolerant microphone down into the hole, and disturbingly, the team claimed to have detected agonizing screams of tormented souls and eerie demonic voices rising from the depths. Terrified, they quickly withdrew the drill, fearing that they had inadvertently opened a gateway to hell itself. There is an audio recording of this supposed hellish audio, and spoiler alert, it's been ruled as a hoax. However, it is pretty unsettling to listen to. I remember hearing this years and years ago when I was a kid, and it kind of freaked me out. Next on the list, we have The Faceless Woman. This story takes place in the London Underground at Beacon Tree Station. The story goes that a station supervisor was working the late shift, minding his own business, when the door to his office started to shake. First, he just brushed it off, thinking it was just the rumble of passing trains on other lines, but when the door didn't stop rattling, even into the wee hours of the morning when no more trains were running, the worker decided probably time to leave. He headed up to the upper office where his coworker was stationed, and as he was making his way up the staircase, he just couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Someone was trailing behind him. He turned around and was greeted by a disturbing sight. A woman stood below him with long blonde hair and without a face, standing just a few feet away. He suddenly dashed up the stairs in a panic before finally finding safety in the top office. Once there, colleague could see the fear in his face before asking him, "Did you see a woman with long blonde hair and no face?" Next up is the Vanishing Hotel Room, aka the Vanishing Lady. This legend began circulating in the late 1800s, taking place in France. Like with most urban legends, there are multiple versions of the tale, but it goes something like this. A mother and daughter had recently arrived in Paris. They check into a hotel, but pretty soon the mother begins feeling ill, collapses. A doctor arrives who informs the daughter that her mother will need medicine. That can only be picked up at the other end of town. The daughter sets out to get the medicine, but when she returns to the hotel hours later, her mother is no longer there. In a panic, she asks the staff where her mother is, but they all claim not to know who she's talking about. According to them, the girl had arrived at the hotel on her own. In some versions of the story, the girl suffers a mental breakdown and ends up at a mental institution. In another version of the legend, it is revealed that the mother had actually died of the Black Plague, and the hotel tried to cover it up by disposing of her body and pretending like they'd never seen her in order to avoid bad publicity. At number 4, we have the Russian sleep experiment. This story began circulating online, and according to the chilling tale, in 1947, Soviet researchers conducted a classified experiment in which 5 subjects were kept awake for an extended period of time. The goal was to test the effects of sleep deprivation on human physiology and their mental state. Days turned into weeks, however. The subjects began to exhibit disturbing behavior. They became increasingly paranoid and delusional, plagued by hallucinations and exhibiting signs of extreme psychological distress. Desperate attempts to stay awake led to self-mutilation as they tore into their own flesh, driven to madness by their sleep-deprived states. The most horrifying twist in the legend comes when the researchers decided to release a gas into the chamber in order to induce sleep. However, instead of providing relief, the gas triggered a nightmarish frenzy of violence. The researchers entered the room only to find one man still standing. The bodies of the other 4 men, or at least what remained of them, lay strewn about the room. Next, we have another urban legend from the London Underground, the Crying Girl of King's Cross Station. In 1987, deep underground in the tunnels of the London subway at King's Cross Station, a fire had broken out. The fire took the lives of 31 people, and some say they still hear the wails and cries of the poor souls who lost their lives there, especially the crying woman. Late at night, when the platform is mostly deserted, some say they spot a woman dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, sobbing into the night, the echoes of her cries reverberating off the long, empty tunnels. When they go to approach her, though, she simply disappears. Coming in at number 2, we have the Black Volga. The urban legend of the Black Volga is a chilling tale that is circulated in various parts of the world, but particularly in Eastern Europe. According to the legend, a menacing black luxury car, often identified as a Volga sedan, prowls the streets at night, instilling fear in all who cross its path. The Black Volga is said to be driven by mysterious figures, frequently described as malevolent entities or agents of the supernatural. Witnesses claim that the vehicle appears seemingly out of nowhere, its engine roaring ominously as it glides silently through the darkness. The car's windows are tinted, hiding the occupants from view and shrouding their intentions in secrecy. Terrifying encounters with the Black Volga involve tales of kidnappings, disappearances, or even encounters with supernatural beings. Some versions of the legend suggest that the car is driven by vampires or other supernatural creatures preying on unsuspecting victims in the dead of night. Some have actually theorized that perhaps the Polish secret police spread these more outlandish legends in order to invalidate claims of genuine kidnappings carried out by the government. And at number 1, we have the Catacombs video. Now, this video really does exist. It's just the person behind the camera who's never been identified, which has led to multiple theories about the circumstances of this case. Is it just a hoax, or was this actually a man who got lost in the catacombs, never to be seen again? This is one most of you have probably heard of, but it's a story that's always stuck with me. One that chilled me to the bone when I first heard about it and watched footage. The video is said to have been filmed in the early 90s, possibly 1993. In the black and white footage, we see a POV of the cameraman as he makes his way through the dark tunnels of the Paris catacombs. Soon though, his breathing begins to intensify and he picks up his pace, now running aimlessly through the tunnels until he finally drops his camera altogether. Continuing to run further into the darkness, the camera continues to record until the battery dies. The camera was found later on, and searches were made for this mysterious man, but no body was ever discovered.
Let's move on to number 3 with the headless ghost. In October of 1889, a train conductor by the name of John Walsh was bringing the train along the Nickel Plate Railroad in Arcadia. While waiting for the signal that would allow him to continue traveling, he noticed that a section of the train cars had disconnected. While trying to reconnect them, the other missing section came barreling towards him, smashing his head between the two cars. In January of 1890, it is said that an engineer has seen John's ghost. Apparently, at night you can see John's headless ghost roaming the tracks looking for his, well, lost head. It is also said that he carries a lantern which he swings back and forth, and people have seen the eerie glow of his lantern at night. In our second spot, we have Helltown. What a nice sounding town to visit in Ohio. Helltown is located in an abandoned town of Newville in Ohio. Now, Helltown wasn't always the name given to this area. It was once known as Boston Mills, but it was bought out by the government, who forced the residents to leave the town. Legend states that the government closed down Boston Mills after a chemical accident that occurred there. As a result of this accident, citizens began to mutate. Some people have claimed to see these disfigured, mutated residents still lurking in the area. It is also said that murdered children roam the woods of Helltown. Apparently, while headed to school, a school bus filled with students ran out of gas. They were stranded in the middle of nowhere when they were killed by a patient from a mental asylum. It is said that the ghosts of these children still roam the woods and can be seen at night, along with hearing their screams. Starting off with number 10, the Bloody Headstone. Riverside Cemetery in Appleton, Wisconsin has been a popular attraction site for those who seek a paranormal thrill, or for those who just wish to get haunted. Among the numerous graves in this cemetery, there is one in particular that gets ongoing attention. Kate Blood. Given the nickname Kitty Blood, she was a supposed child killer, witch, and adulteress. Now her ghost is said to roam the cemetery at night and haunt her gravesite. When people visit her secluded grave, they claim to have been pushed or touched by her ghost, and some have even seen her apparition. They also claim that the area around her grave is unusually warm, and that's from her presence lurking around. What is most unsettling is that on the night of a full moon, apparently blood can be seen seeping through her headstone. Honestly, I just feel sorry for the groundskeeper that has to continuously clean up that mess. That's terrible. Alright, making our way to number 9, the jogging woman on Vine Street. So, I don't know what's scarier, thinking about going for a run or encountering a ghost that likes to run. Vine Street in Eau Claire is a nice, quiet, peaceful, haunted neighborhood. It is said that the ghost of a woman who was hit and killed by a drunk driver while jogging haunts this street. Her shadowy figure can be seen darting in front of cars, only to disappear right after. You know what? Running already haunts me as it is, so I can't imagine witnessing this as well. At number 8, we have dissected corpses. You know, I have never really been a fan of science or anatomy, but this next legend has me intrigued. The University of Wisconsin is presently known for their advanced research studies. However, there have been stories since the 80s of unethical studies that took place in the basement of the school. It is said that they would grave rob these bodies to dissect and conduct experiments on. The basement is now believed to be haunted by the spirits whose bodies were tampered with. Presently, the school does use cadavers to learn about the human body, however, they do it with respect, and it's only bodies that have been donated to the program. Moving on down to number 7, the Hitchhiker of Highway 12. First off, let me say that if you're one of those people that stop and pick up hitchhikers, what are you doing? You don't know their agenda. They could be a killer, or in this case, a ghost. Apparently along the road of Highway 12, people have claimed to see a scruffy man with a dark beard, long greasy black hair who is dressed in blue jeans and an army jacket. Those who see this man drive past him thinking nothing of it, only shocked when miles down the road they encounter the same guy. Those who are brave enough to stop and offer this man a ride find that he disappears without a trace when they approach him. No one knows why this ghostly man is here or why he is haunting the roadside. Next at number 6, we have the Bloody Bride Bridge. I think a lot of people's worst fear on their wedding day is having either their bride or groom get cold feet and not show up. Well, the Bloody Bride Bridge refers to the legend of a bride who got killed on the bridge while on her way to the wedding. It is now said that you can see this bride in her white dress lurking on the bridge at night. In fact, a police officer has witnessed this firsthand when he spotted her laying down on the bridge. He went to go call for an ambulance, but when he went back to her, she had mysteriously disappeared. It is also said that if you park your car near the bridge around midnight, the bride will appear in the backseat of your car. So, word from the wise, if you and your lover decide to get it on in your car, don't park near this bridge unless you want her in the backseat. We are now at our halfway point with number 5. Hogsback Road, Goatman. Here is another road I suggest you add to your list of places not to visit, and there's a good reason for it. Hogsback Road is said to be home of a strange monster that is half man and half goat. His upper body is that of a man with horns and sharp fingernails, while the lower half of his body is of a goat with reddish fur. It is said that this creature hunts for lost travelers to torment or kill. Apparently this creature was once a man who was killed along this road and is now a restless spirit. In fact, a woman named Mindy Rosette believes that her and her daughter had encountered Goatman. They were driving by this area when the creature ran in front of her car. This is how she described the creature. His legs seemed to be bent back, the knees like a dog's. His muscles were really defined, thighs especially. I couldn't make out the hands because of the way it was running. I couldn't see the feet as I couldn't see past the car hood. Instantly, I knew this was something incredible. In our number 4 spot, we have Boy Scouts Lane. Now, as the name suggests, Boy Scouts Lane may sound like the spot to go where Boy Scouts go to learn to tie knots, roast marshmallows, and do other things that Boy Scout related activities, I don't know. However, as you may have guessed, this is not the case. Boy Scouts Lane is an unpaved, secluded small trail that is said to be the place where a troop of Boy Scouts were murdered by their scout master. Other versions of the story state that it was the bus driver that murdered them all, or even that they just died in a bus crash. No matter what version of the story you may hear, it all centers around the theme of a group of Boy Scouts' tragic death. It is said that if you roam this path, you may feel as if you are being watched. Witnesses have said that they have seen the apparition of the scout master, and that child-sized handprints have appeared on their car. Honestly, if I'm gonna go encounter these ghosts, they can at least offer me some Boy Scout cookies, especially those Thin Mints. Those are my secret addiction, okay? Bringing it down to number 3, we have the Ridgeway Ghost. Here we go with another haunted road in Wisconsin. Are you shocked?
I'm not. Along Route 151, there seems to be 2 shape-shifting spirits that haunt the area. This legend dates back to the 1840s and is said that a bar fight between 2 teen brothers and other men resulted in their tragic death. One of the brothers were torched and burned alive, while the other boy froze to death trying to escape these men. It is said that these ghosts have been seen as a headless horseman, a ball of fire, a man with a whip, or even as a big beast. Other people believe that these ghosts can shapeshift into animals such as pigs and dogs. This ghost could definitely play tricks on people. Like, imagine you're gonna go pet a cute dog and all of a sudden it turns into the headless horseman. Yeah. No thanks. Coming in second, we have the Rhinelander Hodag. Now, if you visit the town of Rhinelander, you are bound to encounter the Hodag creature, but not in the way you think. This town has numerous statues and paintings of the Hodag all throughout the town. The Hodag is a 265-pound creature with a frog's head, a dinosaur-looking body, short legs, and a long tail. The creature also has 2 large sharp fangs hanging out of its mouth and reddish glowing eyes. It is said that this creature is aware of its ugliness and spends a lot of time crying over it. I'm feeling slightly targeted here. Legend has it that one of these creatures were caught in the 1890s, however there are still more out there. It is also said that there are only 3 ways to kill it: chloroform, dynamite, and lemons. So if you ever plan to visit Rhinelander, make sure you bring the essentials: toothbrush, toothpaste, chloroform, dynamite, and lemons. I'm sure airport security will understand. And lastly, in our top spot, we have the Maribel Hotel. The Maribel Hotel was once a nice spa for travelers to enjoy, but is now known as Hotel Hell. Legend has it that one night a hotel guest ended up murdering all of the other guests in their sleep. From then on, the hotel has become haunted. The freakiest part about this hotel is that it has burned down 3 different times, but on the exact same day. When that happened, the guests perished in their sleep. It is said that the remains of some of these bodies can be found on the 3rd floor. However, it is now inaccessible from structure failure in the stairs. Still to this day, it is said that you can hear screaming from the basement. Well, now I know where to not stay if I make a trip to Wisconsin. And in our number 1 spot, we have the West Branch Witch. Another witch-related legend. Surprise, surprise. In the West Branch State Park of Portage County, there have been many claims of people encountering a woman dressed in all black. The first appearance was reported in 1960 by a man named B.A. Evans. He recently purchased a piece of land and later discovered a small cemetery on it. This cemetery contains 7 gravestones surrounded by a 40-inch wall. The gravestones are apparently from a family named the Elliots. The headstone that gets the most attention is that of Clemenza. Clemenza was apparently killed by a group of townspeople after being accused of being a witch. As a result, she was pressed. Basically, a wooden board was placed on her and then on top was piled with stones until her body was crushed by the weight. To this day, her grave is marked by a pile of stones that rests on top of it. It is said that she haunts the graveyard and the surrounding area. In fact, on her tombstone is a curse that says, "Remember youth as you pass by. As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so must you be. Prepare for death and follow me." If you read it out loud by her grave, she will apparently chase you away. Now, this legend continues, saying that one night a group of kids took stones from Clemenza's grave. Later on, they died on their way home in a car accident, but the one kid that didn't take the stone survived. So any geologists out there, I recommend not taking any rocks from this site.
Moving on to number 9 now, we have Athens Insane Asylum. Now this building opened its doors in 1874, becoming one of Ohio's largest asylums for the mentally ill. In the beginning, things went well. It offered some of the best care to its patients. As the years went on, the owners realized that they could put some of the patients to work there, specifically on the nearby farm. The greedier they got, the more patients they took on. By the 1950s, it had become a dumping ground for anyone that a family couldn't afford or simply didn't want to look after. At 2,000 patients, it was now 3 times over its capacity, yet the number of staff remained unchanged. Patients were forcibly restrained for days at a time, left in crowded rooms meant for one person, and regularly beaten by staff. In 1993, the hospital finally closed its doors. The remaining buildings were left to Ohio University. In the years after, students would tell tales of strange figures standing in the empty wings in the former hospital. For me though, the creepy part is the report of a stain on the top floor of the building. They say it's of Margaret Skeeling, a patient who went missing in 1979. She was found 42 days later in an abandoned ward. Tests show that she died of heart failure, yet she was found naked next to her clothes folded neatly on the floor. To the horror of those who found her, the body had decomposed so badly that a stain had seeped into the actual concrete. It couldn't be scrubbed away, and they say to this day the stain can still be seen. Next up at number 8 now, we have the melon heads. These humanoid creatures are said to be found in Lake County, Ohio. Now according to legend, the government ran a number of secret experiments on local children there. A man called Dr. Crow performed the experiments on children in an orphanage. The government hoped that they wouldn't cause as much of a stir that way, because nobody would care about the children. Not my words, theirs. Or potentially theirs. The results of the experiment were shocking. The children's hair began to fall out and their bodies mutated, increasing their head to a gigantic size as a result of injecting them with excess fluid. The children feared for their lives. They grouped together and overthrew the twisted doctor, murdering him one night in the orphanage. Then they set fire to the building and fled to the woods to become feral. In the years since, locals have reported seeing fully grown adults with huge heads darting through the trees. While this is already creepy by itself, they also say that these so-called melon heads are now cannibals, feeding on any person that wanders too close to the woods. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Reformatory. This is an old prison built in 1896 and designed by Levi T. Schofield. He wanted the place to inspire the inmates to experience a spiritual renewal and give up their harmful lifestyle, repent their wrongdoing. In the end though, it gained a reputation for death, after more than 200 people died there over the years. These days, people say that the building is haunted by the spirits of the dead. One such person is Helen Glatke, the wife of the prison's one-time warden. She was accidentally shot in the lung when a gun fell off a shelf. Now legend says though that she actually killed herself, and the whole accident story was nothing more than a cover-up. Then there's the rumours of a prisoner setting himself on fire in his cell, an old woman roaming the grounds, and also the hole. The hole was said to be a confinement space in the basement of the prison, designed for 20 people at most. However, guards would cram it full of prisoners just to torture them. The pain and anguish suffered within the walls are said to still remain and be heard on cold dark nights. Moving on to number 6 now, we have Franklin Castle. This Victorian era building is said to be the most haunted house in Ohio, bar none. It's a bold claim, but the story seems to back it up. It was built in the 1880s by a grocer turned banker called Hans Tiedemann. Despite being rich, his life was struck by a number of tragedies. In that house, his 50-year-old daughter died, so too did his mother and 3 other children who died in infancy. His wife became so overcome with grief that she became despondent. He attempted to distract her by turning the house into a sort of castle. He built elaborate tunnels, prominent gargoyles, and a sprawling network of rooms. He stopped though when his wife also passed away. He sold the property. It changed hands a number of times over the decades, and then in the 1960s, reports of hauntings in the house began to spread. There were strange electrical surges, the sound of babies crying, and a mysterious woman in black who roamed the hallways at night. In 1975, human bones were said to be found in a closet in the house. Now since then, there have been reports of an axe murderer there, a mass shooting of Nazis in the basement, and even the hanging of one of the original daughters of the family. People may dispute some of the stories, but some people who visit agree that a lasting presence can definitely be felt at Old Franklin Castle.
Alright, so starting off at our 10th spot, we have the Phantom Kangaroo. Okay, I know it doesn't sound too scary, like a cute little kangaroo. How could it be scary? Well, this one definitely is. So people have described this kangaroo as being 3.5 to 5.5 feet tall, with glowing eyes and supernatural powers. It is said that it can vanish into thin air and can brutally murder local animals. Now, people have claimed to see this phantom kangaroo all throughout Minnesota, but the most recorded sightings were in Coon Rapids. People have said that they have seen this creature rummaging through their trash or even killing pets. People who have seen it have called it a big bunny, but then they would get scared when it disappeared right in front of their eyes. Coming in at number 9, we have the Dog Man. This is another creature that has been reported in different regions of Minnesota. So in 2009, a man encountered this cryptid. He was driving along a country road when he spotted some deer. He pulled over and was watching the deer when he spotted what he referred to as a dog man. He said that this creature was 7 feet tall, 2-legged, and had big, long hands with opposable thumbs. He also said that this creature had a long snout with broad shoulders and muscular thighs. He was covered in dark brown fur. So maybe werewolves are real and this is a version of one. What do you think? Now, thankfully, this creature did not attack this man. They made eye contact, and as soon as they did, the man drove away. Smart thinking. In our 8th spot, we have Peppy the lake monster. Now, this lake monster is thought to be similar to Nessie the Loch Ness monster. In fact, maybe they're related, who knows? Well, Peppy is a massive snake-like creature with a long neck who lives in Lake Pepin. There have been various sightings throughout the 18th and 1900s. People who have seen it have said that it looks like something between the size of an elephant and a rhino and has smooth gray skin. They also said that it can snatch a flying bird right out of the air. Now, Peppy has been considered harmless as there have been no reports of it causing any harm to citizens. In fact, some individuals have gone diving in hopes to see this creature. There is currently a $50,000 reward for anyone who can prove that Peppy is indeed real. So time to put those Photoshop skills to the test. Or maybe it is real and just he's gone into hiding or something. Moving on, at number 7 we have the hairy man of Virga's Trail. Maybe you should think twice before going on a nice little hike in Minnesota. So apparently there have been sightings of a giant hairy man type creature lurking this trail. This creature is supposed to be 8 feet tall with a musty odor. Honestly, I don't know who got close enough to smell this creature. I feel like if it approached me, smelling it would be the last thing on my mind. This creature is also supposed to be very aggressive. A man by the name of Kan Zitzao apparently encountered this creature while driving in the woods. He claimed that this creature jumped on his car and started smashing the hood. Apparently, there are also reports of brutal animal attackings from this creature. So what do you think? You down to come hiking with me? In our 6th spot, we have the Nopeming Sanitarium. Seriously, the name of this place literally has nope in it. If that's not a hint to not go there, then I don't know what is. Now, when people hear the word sanitarium, they often associate it with an insane asylum. However, this was not the case. The Nopeming Sanitarium was a home for the ill and elderly. In 1912, it was home to thousands of patients with tuberculosis. Many of them died, and as a result, people claim that their spirits still roam the halls. Apparently, if you go there, then you can hear some of the spirits of people moaning in pain. Now, this legend also states that there is a 9-year-old girl that lurks around the sanitarium. People don't know who this girl is, but there have been reports of people hearing her giggle, or even of her appearing in photographs that they have taken of the empty hallways. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Bertha Maynard. Now, legend states that Bertha was accused of being a witch in the late 1800s. It is now said that she haunts her gravesite. People have reported seeing her apparition near her grave, or even hearing her whispers and cries. They even claim that her grave would move around or that her headstone would just disappear. Now, one individual reported his encounter with a ghost. He said that he was just chilling in his car with his lady friend by the grave. He states that out of nowhere, his radio went all staticky and the car's antenna started moving rapidly, despite there being no wind. He believes that Bertha was trying to communicate with him. The legend also describes an event involving some teen kids and Bertha's grave. Apparently, these kids vandalized her headstone, and shortly after, one of the kids' parents passed away unexpectedly. They believed that this was Bertha's revenge. Coming in at number 4, we had the Ghost Clown. Now, what's scarier than a clown? A ghost clown. So apparently this ghost clown can be seen along the trail of Lake Almagne. There you go, another reason why we just shouldn't go hiking. Legend has it that this clown just stands and stares at you as you walk the trail. Legend has it that he doesn't want you walking this trail, so he will stalk and stare at you until you leave. They also claim to have seen this clown's apparition appear and then disappear randomly, or have even seen weird shadowy figures darting in and out of the trees. But my question is, who is this ghost clown man? What happened in the forest, and why is the ghost dressed like a clown? Or maybe Pennywise has found a new hiding spot. Who knows? In our 3rd spot, we have Duluth's East Little Theater.
This next urban legend is quite an interesting one. Now, apparently a drama director died in this theater after falling off the balcony. Before his death, he was in the midst of writing a play. However, because of this accident, he was never able to finish it. Now, legend has it that one day his script mysteriously appeared on an English teacher's desk. Attached to the script was a note written on an old stationery that read, "Please perform this." And then it was signed by him with the initials RC. Now, they never did end up performing this piece, for obvious reasons. I mean, that must have been terrifying. But drama students say that they hear weird noises in the theater and sometimes feel a cold presence. Coming in at number 2, we have the Wendigo. Now, apparently the Wendigo has been seen in forests of colder regions like Minnesota and Canada. Dang it, why does it have to be in Canada too? So, the Wendigo is a giant creature that can be up to 15 feet tall. They are skinny and often have antlers coming out of their head. Now, there have been several reports of this creature being seen in forests all throughout Minnesota. People believe that this creature evolved from a lost hunter. They claim that his hunger and the extreme cold weather drove him to cannibalism. Wendigos are then said to hunt down and eat humans. Wendigos look terrifying. Like, imagine being a hunter and seeing the antlers from behind a tree and hoping you're gonna catch a deer, and then next thing you know, it's this gigantic creature hunting you. Spooky. No thank you. And in our number 1 spot, we have the UFO attacks. So, there are UFO sightings in every city basically. Anything in the sky that looks a bit odd is automatically claimed as a UFO, and people believe it too. Even if it was reported by old Mr. Jenkins who wasn't even wearing his glasses. So in August of 1979, a deputy by the name of Val Johnson suffered an attack from what he claims was a UFO. So this deputy was in the Marshall County when he saw a strange light on the road ahead of him. He drove towards the light when all of a sudden it completely filled his car and blinded him. Half an hour later, he woke up in a ditch. He had welder burns on his eyes, and the time on his wristwatch and dashboard clock was off. His car had a smashed headlight and his antenna was bent. Police have no explanation as to what happened, and since then, this has become a well-known urban legend.
Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Loveland Frogmen. This is a really weird one, guys, and I'm saying this as a guy who has done more urban legends videos than he's had hot dinners. Residents of the town of Loveland have been reporting since 1955 that amphibious men live along the river there. The first sighting occurred when a businessman claimed to have witnessed 3 bipedal quasi-reptilian entities congregating by the side of the road. The man pulled his car to the curb and watched the creatures for about 3 minutes. He described them as being 3 to 4 feet tall, covered with leathery skin and having webbed hands and feet. While they had some human-like features, he said that they had distinctly frog-like heads. Just before the creatures left, one of them seemed to wave what the witness described as a wand above its head. Like an actual magical wand. Sparks apparently came out of it. The man left, but over the years many have reported similar experiences, leaving many locals to see the Frogman as just a strange part of reality. Going up at number 10 now, we have the Demon Bridge of County Monaghan. This is a story of death. The Demon Bride is said to have terrorized funeral goers for at least 200 years. Her victims now lie in the churchyards where they fell. Across County Monaghan, people report the same thing. The Demon Bride watches funerals and waits as the deceased are laid to rest. As everyone leaves, the Demon Bride approaches a young man straggling behind. She transforms into a beautiful young woman and makes him promise to meet her a month from that day back there at the graveyard. She seals the deal with a kiss and then vanishes. As he leaves the graveyard, his blood runs cold and a deep sense of despair washes over him. He realizes he has sold his body and soul to the evil spirit and his life has been forfeited. Over the next month, he descends into madness before eventually dying. He is laid to rest in the same graveyard as before, exactly a month after he first met the Demon Bride, his promise fulfilled. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Banshee. The Banshee is a female spirit that wails in the night as a sign that death is coming for a family member. Legend says the Banshee has long streaming hair, wears a grey cloak over a green dress, and her eyes are red from constant weeping. According to the Ancient Legends of Ireland book, the Banshee may be seen at night as a shrouded woman crouched beneath the trees, lamenting with veiled face or flying past the moonlight crying bitterly, and the cry of this spirit is mournful beyond all other sounds on earth, and betokens certain death for some member of the family whenever it is heard in the silence of the night. Could not think of a more scary description myself if I tried. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Dergdu. Many countries have a vampire legend. This is the Irish one. The name translates from Irish as red bloodsucker. Originally, the Dergdu was a normal girl who lived over 2,000 years ago. She was said to be beautiful, with blood-red lips and pale blonde hair. Her true name has been lost in the sands of time, overshadowed by what she became. Men travelled from all over Ireland in the hopes of just being with her. However, she fell in love with a local man who was very poor. He was perfect for her, but without money, her father would never let them marry. Instead, he married her off to an old, cruel man who abused her. He liked to draw blood from her while she was locked up in a tower cell. One day, she gave up hope of her true love ever rescuing her and committed suicide by refusing to eat. Her dying breath was a vengeance against the living. Her undead corpse rose from the earth on the night she was buried, thirsting for the blood that was taken from her. She was now the Dergdu, stealing blood from children, from the innocent, and especially from young men. She would call to them in the night with a haunting siren song that lured them to their deaths. Some say she still wanders the Irish countryside at night, calling out to her next victim. At number 7 now, we have the Changelings. These are mythical fairy creatures that take the place of a newborn human child that has been stolen by the fairies. The fairies will steal the child to act as a servant for them. Families would try and see if their baby was actually a changeling through a number of different ways. One of them involved placing them over a fire. If the baby was a changeling, it would leave by just climbing up the chimney. The real child would then be returned. It was thought that the fairies preferred to steal baby boys. As a result, many Irish families would dress their baby boys in dresses to confuse the fairies. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the Dullahan. The Dullahan is a headless rider of the night who carries his own head under one arm. His mouth is locked in a hideous grin that touches both sides of his head. His flesh is rotting and he uses the spine of a human for a horsewhip. His job is as a foreteller of death. When he stops riding, a person is due to die. He will call out the person's name, at which point they drop to the floor dead. There is no way to stop the Dullahan. All locks and gates open when he approaches. They don't like being watched either and will throw blood over anyone who dares to do so. This is also taken as a mark that they are among the next to die. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Fetch. The Fetch is a supernatural double of a living person. You can have your own Fetch. They're like a doppelganger but with much more sinister undertones. Their sightings are regarded as an omen of impending death. If a person sees this dark double of themselves, it's said to mean they are going to die soon. Sometimes the Fetch may even have a clue as to how that person will die, perhaps a bullet wound in the head or a slash across the chest. Either way, it's not something you want to come across in your life. The Fetch is said to appear ghostly or shadowy and may vanish down alleyways or halls if followed. At number 4 now, we have the Puka. According to Irish folklore, these are strange little creatures obsessed with causing as much havoc as possible. They visit farms and seaside communities to tear down fences and disturb the animals there. The creepy part is that the legend says the Puka sometimes just stand outside of a farmhouse and calls the people outside by their name. If anyone steps out, the Puka will carry them away forever. There are stories of them being bloodthirsty and vampire-like creatures, as well as ones that describe them as man-eating beings, hunting down, killing, and eating their victims. Next up, number 3 now, we have the Alp Luatra. This creature is also known as the Joint Eater. Don't worry, it doesn't eat your joints, but this creature does something just as strange. It's said to be a newt-like creature that preys on people who fall asleep near rivers or streams. It jumps down their throat and lives in their stomach so that it can eat the victim's food. In the collection of folktales called Beside the Fire, a farmer was starving from an Alp Luatra that was in his stomach, and he found a way to get rid of the creature. He ate large amounts of salted meat until he could eat no more. Then he lay by a stream with his mouth open. The Alp Luatra was driven to thirst by all the salt, and eventually they all jumped out of the man and into the water. Gross. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the Black Cat of Killarkey House. There is said to be a beast that wanders the forests of County Dublin around the old Killikee house. The animal has been sighted for centuries there, and people say it's supernatural. For a lot of people, for a while, this was nothing more than a superstition. That was until 1968 when a young couple bought the Killikee house and started renovating it. The hired workers there reported strange noises and events and a big black cat with demonic eyes that haunted them. It would appear and disappear in a moment. The owners didn't believe them until they saw it too, just standing in the hallways staring at them and snarling. The couple got a priest to perform an exorcism on the house, which seemed to get rid of the beast for a while. Then a group of actors held a seance in the house which brought the black cat back, and with many people now saying it still prowls there to this day. And finally, at number 1 now, we have the Slough. Some say these spectral creatures are demons, but a closer term would probably be malicious spirits. The Slough are dead sinners who have been doomed to spend an eternity hunting for the souls of people who are dying. According to Irish folklore, they come from the west, flying like a flock of birds, trying to enter a house where they sense someone is dying in order to steal their soul and rob them of a happy afterlife. It was said that many families would actually shut their west-facing windows at all times to keep the Slough out of their homes. Some folklore experts have compared this to the Wild Hunt, a European folktale about ghostly hounds or spirits travelling around in packs foretelling of death and disaster. Going up at number 10 now, we have the Derry Vampire. In the city of Derry, you can find an area known as Slaughterverty. There lies a grassy mound known as O'Cathane's Dolmen, marked by a single thorn tree. Legend says that a vampire is contained within it. Back in the 5th century, a chieftain known as Abatak ruled over the area. He was known for his cruelty and viciousness, even to his own tribe. Locals said that he was actually an evil wizard, using his powers to rise to a position of power. When he died, the tribe gave him a respectful burial. They thought that was the end of it. A day later though, his reanimated corpse appeared in the village. He demanded a bowl of fresh human blood, or else he would release his terror upon them. The terrified village turned to help from another local chieftain called Cathane, begging that he kill Abatak. Well, he did. He came and killed Abatak, but he rose again, so he killed him again and again, but still he kept on living, returning to the village in search of human blood. Cathane consulted a Christian hermit for guidance. He directed that Abatak be killed using a wooden sword made of yew. He then had to be buried head downwards, weighted with a heavy stone. Finally, thorn bushes should be planted tightly in a circle around the grave. Somehow, it worked. To this day, the mound still remains. People believe it should be left exactly as it is, or else the vampire will return, demanding human blood. Next up at number 9 now, we have the cottage of Coonean. In Coonean, on the Fermanagh-Tyrone border, lies an old abandoned cottage. In 1911, it belonged to the Murphy family. Legend says they were being plagued by poltergeists, mischievous ghosts that wanted them out. The family chose to stay. Mrs. Murphy was a widow. Her and the children began to hear mysterious noises at night. There were knocks on the door, footsteps in the empty attic above, and strange groans emitting from the walls. This was only the beginning though. Plates began sliding across tables by themselves, and bedcloths moved around in empty beds. Then it started getting even more intense. Pots and pans were thrown violently against the walls while furniture floated off the ground. Even when things weren't being smashed around, a strange coldness permeated the cottage as mysterious shapes appeared and then disappeared through the walls. In the end, a Catholic priest was called in to perform 2 exorcisms, but that didn't work. Locals began to believe the family had brought this evil on themselves and stopped helping them. Finally, the Murphys caved in and emigrated to America in 1913. Locals believe the ghost followed them. Now, over 100 years on, their cottage lies abandoned. People still say an evil atmosphere surrounds it. Next up at number 8 now, we have the Dunsandle mantelpiece. This house in Galway has so many ghost stories attached to it, it's hard to keep track of them. In the early 20th century, a stone worker who was repairing parts of the old house took a shining to one of the mantelpieces. He decided to take it with him back to his workshop. Now, legend says that the ghost of a tall man that haunted the house had somehow attached itself to the mantelpiece and went with it. The workshop then became haunted. Objects would fly around the room. Glasses and other items would smash or break. Perhaps the creepiest thing was the actual sightings of the ghost, often accompanied with sounds of an Irish fiddle playing in the distance. The only way to stop the hauntings was for the stoneworker to return the mantelpiece to Dunstable House, where it remains to this day, along with its ghostly legend. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Faceless Lady of Belverley Castle. In Cork Harbour lies Belverley Castle. In the 17th century, century, it's said that a woman named Margaret Hodnett lived there. She loved mirrors. Back then, mirrors were a symbol of luxury and wealth. Not many people owned them. Margaret had many of them so that she could always remind herself of her famous beauty. She had an on and off relationship with a local lord called Clon Rockenby. He asked for her hand in marriage many times, but she always refused. Eventually, he had enough of the rejection and decided to raise a small army to take her castle and her by force. Definitely an overreaction, I'd say. You can't just raise an army if someone doesn't want you. Anyway, the attack didn't go well. Clon was forced to siege the castle. Margaret held on for a year before eventually surrendering. Clon entered the castle to find Margaret starved to death, a skeletal figure, and not the beauty he had sought after for so long. Out of rage, he smashed her favourite mirror to pieces. Then one of Margaret's soldiers killed him with a sword. After that, Margaret descended into madness. She looked for mirrors constantly to see if her beauty had returned, but it never did. She died of old age, and locals say her ghost appears in the castle as a lady in white, sometimes with a veiled face and sometimes with no face at all. They say you can still see her, staring at the walls where mirrors used to hang, tilting her head as if looking at her reflection. Moving on to number 6 now, we have Corny. In the early 20th century, reports began of a ghost called Corny haunting a house in Dublin. The husband had sprained his knee badly and had to use a crutch, thumping around during the day and then leaving it by his bedside at night. One night, the wife woke up to the sound of the same thumping in the night, but her husband was next to her and the crutch was still by their bed. It was actually Corny, a poltergeist who was mocking the husband by thumping around in the night. He wreaked havoc on the house, playing practical jokes on the servants. Some of them were so terrified that they threatened to leave. The wife agreed to move them into a bedroom at the top of the house with a special press bed. On the first night, as they went to bed, the doors of the press bed flung open and Corny's voice called out, "Haha, you devils, I am here before you. I am not confined to any particular part of this house." He told them that in life he had been a bad man who had died a bad death. He said he couldn't tell them in what realm he was now because it would anger God. Next up at number 5 now, we have the Dobar Chew. This creature is also known as the King Otter in Irish folklore. It's said to resemble an otter, a dog and a fish all at once. There have been many documented sightings of it over the years. In the town of Cornwall in County Leitrim lies the grave of a woman who was said to have actually been killed by the Dobar coup in the 17th century. Her headstone says she was called Grain. Legend says her husband supposedly heard her scream one night as she was washing her clothes in the lake. He ran to help her, but when he arrived, she was already dead, her body bloody and mutilated by the creature. The man killed the Dobar Coup by stabbing it right through the heart. As it died, it made a strange whistling noise. At that moment, another Dobar Coup rose up from the water. It was the mate of the first one. The man fought and killed that one too. Since then, many people know there may be more out there. Some have reported seeing and even fighting them to the death. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Whispering Mummies. St. Michan's Church is a 330-year-old building that is built on an even more ancient burial ground. Catacombs and grave vaults lie in the darkness below the church with coffins full of well-preserved mummies. Visitors report strange, whispering voices down there, along with an oppressive feeling in the tight hallways. It's a feeling of being in a crowd of people, despite there being nobody around. Some have even reported feeling unseen hands touching them on the back of their necks. For people that go there, the feeling of being in a spirit crowd when they can't see anyone is a very unnerving experience. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the Sligo Mansion. On the Coolera Peninsula in Sligo, a man called William Phibbs built a stately mansion known as Seafield House. It overlooked the sea, and with over 20 rooms, it was a detestable symbol of wealth during the Irish Great Famine. Locals thought that he was a cruel and uncaring landlord. By the early 20th century, his descendant, Owen Phibbs, was using the mansion to store Egyptian artifacts and mummies there. Not long after, there were reports of a poltergeist terrorizing the house. According to some servants, the house would shake and objects would smash into the walls. A ghostly horse-drawn coach was seen trotting up the driveway. Priests were called in to perform several exorcisms, but the activity wouldn't cease. Eventually, it got so bad, even the Phibbs family were driven away. Next up at number 2 now, we have the Murdered Jester. Malahide Castle in Dublin was built by King Henry II of England in the 12th century. It hosted grand medieval feasts feast, complete with minstrels and jesters for entertainment. One of the jesters, named Puck, saw a female prisoner at a feast one night and fell in love with her. He tried to help her escape but was stabbed to death outside of the castle by the guards. In his dying breath, he vowed to haunt the place forever. Since then, there have apparently been many sightings of him. Visitors report seeing and photographing his spectral features appearing in the thick ivy that grows on the castle walls near where he was killed. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Vanishing Island. On July 7th, 1878, the residents of Ballycotton in County Cork were shocked to see an island out there in the ocean that had never been there before. Locals stood on the shoreline in absolute disbelief. They could see woodlands, fields, and deep valleys. Fishermen sailed out to investigate, but as they approached, the island flickered out of existence. This isn't an isolated case either. Similar sightings have occurred in County Kerry, County Clare, and Ballina Lane Bay in Galway. Some have tried to explain the sightings of the Vanishing Island as a trick of the light, an optical illusion due to light refraction. Others link it to the old Irish legend of a vanishing island that becomes visible once every 7 years. I did some calculations, and if that's true, then 2018 is also a year where it should appear again. So keep your eyes peeled for that story. What do you guys think of this? Trick of the light, parallel universe, or spectral island? Going off at number 10 now, we have the Angkor. This legend comes from Brittany in France. Perhaps the best comparison for this one is that of the Grim Reaper. The Angkor is said to resemble the Grim Reaper, wearing a black coat that covers his face. He also carries a scythe that strikes fear into the hearts of all who see him. Now, unlike the Grim Reaper though, the Angkor is not tasked with killing mortals whose time has come. His job is to guard the souls of the graveyard, to collect the ones that have been lost, and to bring them to his realm. No one living has ever seen his face, for to do so would mean certain death. His eye sockets are like smouldering ashes glowing with an eerie light. His eyes were removed many years ago by an angel who was angry when the Angkor attempted to rip the soul from a good untainted man. He is said to drive a black cart or hearse pulled by 2 horses. Some say it is the souls he harvests that end up working for him, loading his carts with bodies so that he can remove their souls later. If you hear his knock, a death in the family will come within just 1 year. If a person finds a red mark outside their door, it's a sign of an approaching illness. This became known as the Mark of Death. Perhaps the scariest aspect of the Angkor is that there is always room for 1 or more bodies in his cart. Some say he has never stopped harvesting souls, and he will continue to do so forever. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Dame Blanches. Those of you who know a little bit of French might know this translates to the White Ladies. These mythical beings have been mentioned all over France, and the best description I've heard of them is that they're beautiful trolls. Not because they look like trolls, but because they are said to live under bridges. They wait for young men who need to cross. They love to dance and will crawl out from below the bridge to try and dance with the men. They are charming, and usually the men agree. If a man does, they will dance, and then he will be allowed to pass without any problems. The men who refuse though will be thrown off the bridge to their deaths. Many people believe this was the key to their success. The survivors would always tell other people about the lovely women in white at the bridge who wanted to dance with them. The ones who knew their true terror would be dead and washed down the river. Next up at number 8 now, we have the Tarasque. When you think of dragons, many people would jump to China, but France has its very own. The Tarasque is a fearsome dragon-like creature that has been mentioned in southern France for generations. In medieval times, it was said to devastate the land. Those who lived to tell the tale said it was a dragon with a lion's head, 6 short legs like a bear's, an ox-like body covered with a turtle shell, and a scaly tail that ended in a scorpion stinger. They say it has teeth like swords and as big as horns. Sounds pretty horrible, right? Well, the people of southern France certainly thought so. Legend says the creature would hide in the river and attack passers-by after sinking their vessels. The King of Nerlux was said to have attacked one with knights and catapults. The creature was almost impossible to kill. Saint Martha charmed the beast with hymns and prayers and led it back to the city. The terrified people attacked it as it slept, and the creature did not fight back, ultimately dying right there. The townspeople felt so bad that they renamed the city Tarascon in the creature's honor, a place that you can still visit today. Just keep one eye open as you sleep. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the kidney thieves. The story goes like this. A man in Paris once had too much to drink, and when he stumbled into his home, he forgot to lock his door. The next morning, he woke up naked in his bathtub, which was filled with ice. Next to the tub, he found his phone and a note that read, "Call an ambulance right away and don't move." There was also a bottle of champagne in the ice and a national health insurance reimbursement form stapled to the with a note. The man panicked but had no choice than to follow what the note said. He called the ambulance, which took him to the hospital. The doctors were shocked to find that someone had surgically removed one of his kidneys. He used the medical form to claim the money back in medical fees and got 30,000 euros. Many people in France have spread this scary story of organ thieves who are sometimes willing to pay a fair price, but they'll always take what they want by force. Next up at number 6 now we have the Vanishing Hotel. The story goes like this. Two couples were driving through France on their way to Spain. To break up the journey, they decided to stay for the night in Montelimar in France. The hotel was full, and so they set out to find a new place to stay. They stumbled across a street with old-fashioned buildings and advertisements for a local circus. They found a hotel with some vacancies and decided to stay there for the night. They were surprised to find the hotel had no elevators or telephones. Every door had wooden catches on rather than locks. There were bolsters instead of pillows on the bed. The plumbing was very old-fashioned but seemed somehow new. Their bed sheets were made of calico, a cheap-looking fabric that hasn't been used to make linen for centuries. The windows were even worse. They didn't have any glass, just shutters. Despite the strangeness of this hotel, they stayed the night. Next morning at breakfast, they saw a few people enter the hotel. A woman in a long old-fashioned dress with buttoned boots. Then there were two French policemen wearing old uniforms. The hotel bill was very cheap, less than 10% of what they were expecting to pay. Nonetheless, they enjoyed their stay and decided to return to the hotel on their way back from Spain 2 weeks later. This time though, they couldn't find it anywhere. The cobbled road and the old-fashioned circus signs were still there, but the hotel was gone. It had disappeared. When they went to develop their holiday photos, all the ones they had taken of the hotel were missing. They weren't even just blanks either. The photos physically didn't exist anymore. It was like the hotel had never existed at all. These details have been verified by a number of historians, but nobody has ever been able to offer an explanation for this mysterious time slip. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Matagot. In southern France, people say the Matagot is an animal spirit. The interesting thing about this creature is that it takes the form of any animal it chooses. It's often a black cat, but can also be a rat, fox, dog, or even a cow. They are generally evil, but can sometimes bring wealth into a home if it's well fed. Traditionally, a wealth-bringing Matagot must be lured with a fresh chicken. The new owner must then carry it home without looking back once. If the cat is given the first mouthful of food and drink at every meal, it will repay its owner with a solid gold coin each morning. However, there is a catch. Nobody can keep a Matagot forever. They say if the owner is dying, they will suffer a long and painful death if they do not free the Matagot. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Gargoyle. The story goes that this creature was a terrible sea serpent who emerged one day in the Seine River and began to spew water about the countryside. It created a giant tidal wave, and whatever the waters did not kill, the dragon himself devoured for its meal. Its name literally means gargler for this reason. One day, the Archbishop of Rouen intended to put a stop to the problem. He knew the creature lived in a cavernous lair on the banks of the Seine River, and he intended to travel there to stop it from rampaging anymore. Nobody wanted to help him though. They said it was a suicide mission. Instead, he took with him 2 prisoners who were already condemned to death. When they got there, the beast attacked them ferociously. However, the Archbishop made the sign of the cross with his fingers, and then the dragon fell docile. They then bound the dragon by its neck and led it back to the town. There, the people condemned it to die by fire because it had killed so many with water. Fire raged for days until an enormous pile of ash was left behind. They cast the pile into the river from where the beast has originally come from. Ever since then, the drains that divert the rainwater from the roof of the local church building have been decorated with images of the monster as a reminder of what the people suffered through. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Beast of Gevaudan. This fearsome creature is not steeped in the mists of time from thousands of years ago. It's fairly recent and well documented, which perhaps makes it even more unnerving. The beast was described as a sort of werewolf, half man, half beast that preyed on people in the 18th century. The first report of it came in 1764. A young woman was tending to her livestock when the creature attacked her. It made several attempts before being driven away by her own cattle. She testified that the creature was a large wolf-like thing with reddish fur, small ears, a dog-like head and a long tail. At the time, people thought this was just a one-off event, but they were wrong. Just a few days later, a 14-year-old girl was killed by the beast not far from the first sighting. Her body had disappeared, presumably devoured whole. Now it was serious. The villagers began to panic and the attacks got more brutal. There were several reports that people's heads were just being snapped clean off by the beast. The legend grew so big that even the King of France himself heard about it. No matter how many hunters he sent, the attacks kept happening. In the end, in 1767, 300 hunters finally tracked down the beast, which required a silver bullet to be killed. Some say they got it wrong though, and that this was just a large wolf, and the real beast or its offspring may still roam the hills of France. Moving on to number 2 now, we have Les Lavandières. This legend has been spoken of in northern France for centuries. The name translates to the midnight washerwomen. They are said to be 3 old laundresses in Celtic mythology. The old women go to the water's edge at midnight to wash the clothes of those who are about to die. Those who see them say they're small, dressed all in green, and have webbed feet. This also led to them being called the night ducks. They are a terrifying omen of death to all who have seen them. It can mean a death in the family or the death of the person that actually sees them. Now, despite their appearance, the washerwomen are said to be very agile and strong, almost supernaturally so. In other Celtic countries, if you can get between the women and the water, they will ask you 3 questions which you must answer honestly. If you do, you'll be given 3 wishes. However, due to their ominous relationship with death, many people will turn and run at the first sight of them. And finally, at number 1 now, we have the faux follet. You guys may have heard this called by other names in English, such as the will-o'-the-wisp or the jack-o'-lantern. It's some sort of atmospheric ghost light which appears in shades of faint blue. Other times it can be yellow, red or green in appearance. It appears suspended in the air, sometimes flickering, and often appears just briefly at night above cemeteries, swamps or bogs. Aside from its ghostly light, faux follets are generally harmless. However, beware, as these wisps are said to be spirits of the dead or supernatural beings. If you try and follow them, they will lead you to your death, and perhaps you too will become a wisp.
Starting us off for number 10 is the Wild Hunt, and this one is borderline ancient. The first account of the Wild Hunt was back in 1127 when a historical document revealed this. Many men both saw and heard a great number of huntsmen hunting. The huntsmen were black, huge and hideous, and rode on black horses and on black he-goats, and their hounds were jet black with eyes like saucers and horrible, end quote. Apparently the huntsmen were sinners while they were alive, and so the nightly exercise was just part of their punishment, and if them on their own isn't scary enough, they were also accompanied by demons. Lone travelers would get taken by the whole group of them and dragged to the literal pits of hell, which I'm not here for, by the way. I don't know about you personally, but personally that's not my vibe. Personally. I don't speak for everyone. Coming in at number 9 is Red Cap. So a bit of a history lesson for you. England and Scotland were at war for far too long back in the day, and that made the Anglo-Scottish border a dangerous place to be. Raiders from both countries would go and commit crimes on the other side of the border and come back and not be punished for it. And with horrible people, there are also horrible creatures. Red Cap was an evil creature that took the form of an old man with iron shoes. He had long pointed teeth, and you already know that doesn't sit well with me, red eyes, talon-like fingers and long hair. And the cherry on top was his red hat. Red Cap would ravage all the abandoned castles along the border, hunting for bodies left behind from the war, and use their blood to dye his cap. And if he didn't find any bodies, he'd just wait around and kill an unlucky passerby. Apparently the only way to defeat him is to either brandish a crucifix or recite biblical scripture, after which he should scream and disappear into a ball of fire, and if he doesn't, well, don't quote me on that. No cap. I had to do it. Come on, this is me, I had to do it. Chris is like, yeah. At number 8, we have the Vampires of Burton-on-Trent. No folklore video is ever complete without the mention of some kind of vampires or another. According to an old Anglo-Saxon chronicle, there were 2 peasants in Burton-on-Trent that had died, yet were seen walking around town with their coffins on their backs. They would knock on people's doors, calling out their names, and whoever was called upon would very quickly fall sick and die. Now, suspicious, the villagers decided to open up the coffins of the 2 men to see the corpses were completely undecayed and their mouths were covered with cloths drenched in blood. Being like, absolutely not, the villagers then beheaded the corpses, cut their hearts out and burned the bodies. Good going, guys, I would have done the same. 2 black birds were seen emerging from the fire, and after that point the men were never seen again. I honestly feel like Twilight and the Vampire Diaries has really ruined vampires for me. I always have to remind myself they're not like Edward Cullen or the Salvatore brothers, they're like this. Don't fall in love with them. It's not cute. Let's not romanticize vampires. Let's cancel that culture right now. Starting now. Filling on our 7th slot is Cutty Dyer. Now the legend of Cutty Dyer goes way back to at least 1879. That's the first time this creature was talked about in local publications, and everyone had already been it for a while. This creature is said to be an ogre or a water sprite that stalked the stream of the River Yo or Ashburn, depending on the version of the story that you hear. The legend originated in the town of Ashburton, where he supposedly lived under the King's Bridge. Isn't it usually trolls that live under the bridge? What's going on? Katidaya would wait around stalking children and any drunkards that came by. He'd then pounce on them, drowning them and then gorging on their blood. That's appetizing. Parents used to tell his story to their kids, kind of like an ode to the boogeyman, so they'd stay away from the river. 2 people have even said to have witnessed him standing waist deep in the water, bearing shark teeth and bright glowing red eyes. Now at number 6 is Spring-Heeled Jack. Good old Jack terrorized Victorian Britain, namely London, from the 1830s onwards. First mentioned back in 1810, 3 women reported being attacked by a tall figure wearing a skin-tight black suit, long fingers, red eyes, and metal claws. Apparently he would breathe blue fire into their faces, not burning them, but paralyzing them. A fear was ripe around the city, everyone was bricks, and rightfully so. Many groups even set out to find and kill Jack, but he was never caught. As he gained popularity, his attacks became few and far between, because mans like to keep it low-key. You know how it is. Keep it on the down low, on the DL. Like me, I'm a very low-key person. Ha! Not. Coming in at number 5 is the Guy Trash. Now already the countryside of Yorkshire is pretty much deserted. The hills have a bunch of footpaths around them that people haven't used in centuries. So because of that and the major lack of signage, it's almost inevitable that one would get lost if travelling the area. The Guy Trash was said to be the most dangerous spirit to live in Yorkshire, and here I'm like, damn, there's more than one spirit? No. Looks wise, it could appear as a black horse or dog or mule with fiery red eyes. It would stalk the footpaths looking for lost travellers and would then lead them further astray, so they'd be even more screwed. Once the traveller was lost with no hope, the Guy Trash would either disappear, leaving them for dead in the dark, or it'd attack them, killing them instantly. At number 4 is the Mermaid of Galloway. First mentioned back in 1810, this tale goes as follows. The Mermaid of Galloway used to live in a breathtaking burn or watercourse, and every night she would sit on a rock and locals would come to her seeking medical advice. Everything was all rainbows and butterflies, but one particular religious woman thought the mermaid was the work of the devil. She ended up pushing the mermaid's rock back into the water, and so when the mermaid appeared the next day, she was so distraught due to the lack of seat. She cried out saying, "You may look to your empty cradle and I'll look to my stain." She said more than that, but it's all in Old English and I didn't even understand it, and I figured you guys wouldn't either, and it simply wasn't relevant. The next day, the religious woman's baby was found dead in its cradle, and the mermaid was never seen again. I mean, never take a woman's seat. You know what they say. No one says that, but I do. Filling our number 3 slot is the Kelpie and the 9 Children. Reverend John Gregerson Campbell was the first person to recount the story in his book Superstitions of the Highlands and Islands of Scotland back in 1900. Legend has it a group of 9 children were roaming around Lochaber in the Scottish Highlands when they came across a relatively massive, friendly horse. This horse was so big that it had room for all 9 kids to sit on its back, and as soon as they did, the horse galloped off with the kids fearing for their lives. They wanted to jump off but were magically stuck to the horse, and only one of the kids survived because he had a pocket knife in his bag. He cut off his finger that was attached to the horse's mane and watched it dive into a lock, taking its damned cargo with it. None of the kids were seen again, but the following day, guts and other organs were seen floating on the surface of the water. Now at number 2 is the Witch Hare of Cleveland. Not Cleveland, Ohio, we're talking Britain, baby. So this story came to light in the early 19th century. Apparently a group of farmers were out hunting hares when they ran into Nanny X, a well-known witch in the area. She told them that she would tell them where a huge hare was, but that they should not set a black dog on it to kill it. Very specific instructions, but they agreed. She then pointed out a massive brush where of course there was a hare underneath. The hare started running for the hills, and of course the farmers went off after it. Just as the hare finally reached Nanny X's cottage, a massive demon hellhound appeared out of thin air, snapping the hare's legs and taking a massive bite out of its leg. Distraught, the hunters went to her cottage to apologize for letting the black dog get the hare, but when they went inside they found her half dead in bed with a massive lump out of her thigh, exactly where the hellhound had bit the hare. And finally, at number 1 is Black Annis, aka Black Annie. First mentioned in a title deed back in 1764, Annie was a witch that apparently lived in a cave known as Black Annie's Bower. The cave has since been lost to erosion and was supposedly built over for housing after World War I. Looks wise, she had a grimy blue face, long arms that she used to reach through windows and snatch people's kids, and claws made of iron like she could slice a head clean off. Hide your kids, hide your wife. She would go around Leicestershire haunting locals and looking for animals or children to eat. Once she'd kidnapped a child, she would drain them of all their blood, then drape their skin on the tree outside her cave. Then she'd wait for the skin to dry out before adding it to her skirt that was already made from kids of murdered past.
Going off at number 10 now, we have the Loup Cassol. This urban legend originates from the Gascony region of France. The Loup Cassol is said to be a disgusting, grotesque creature that wanders the countryside of southern France. It's described as half snake, half snail. Its massive and long body carries an enormous shell on its back. Its hideous mouth is surrounded by several long, hairy and slime-covered tentacles that can extend for not inches or feet, but for miles. Yes, you heard me right, miles. They send these tentacles stretching out from the caves they live in. They wait for people to accidentally touch one and then bang! They grab hold of you and drag you right down underground where they swallow you whole with their huge mouths. Next up at number 9 now, we have meat pies. In the 15th century, the story goes that a barber and a cook made a deal in Paris. The barber would slit the throats of his clients, who were mainly poor college students. He would then chop up their bodies and send them through a trapdoor to a cook straight to his kitchen. The cook would then use the human meat to make his pies and sell them to the public. There were many different flavors and sizes to reflect the diversity of his supply. Business grew for both of them, and the bakery became known as one of the city's most well-known patisseries. Nobody was wise to what was going on, at least no human. You see, one day a German student called Alaric was visiting the barber. His dog sensed that something wasn't right and began barking at the neighbors. When people came to investigate, they found the cellar full of torture tools used to hack apart the corpses. The two men confessed to their heinous crimes and were burnt alive in iron cages. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Peluda. This creature has been a feared part of French folklore for generations. Its name means hairy or shaggy beast, but to be honest, it's a whole lot more than that. They are said to have stingers like a porcupine, the head and neck of a snake, tortoise feet, and a serpent tail. Their breath withers crops. They can fire their quills like arrows, spit acid out of their tails, and if they attack you, you're doomed. They are said to be invulnerable all over their body except for their tail. With their huge size, people say they could create floods simply by stepping on rivers. Some people believe that the Peluda was one of the animals that was not saved by Noah and his ark in the Bible. However, it still managed to survive the Great Flood by hiding in caves. Afterwards, it went on a rampage across the world, killing everything that got to board the ark instead. Some people say it still continues this today, even if they're only left in France. Next up at number 7 now, we have the Chateau de Tresesson. This is a medieval castle in the Brittany region of France. From the outside, it's an impressive looking building, attracting tourists from all over the world, but don't be fooled by its outward charm. The chateau is famous for its terrifying ghost stories. One night many years ago, a black coach stopped near the moat and 2 men got out. They used shovels and picks to dig a deep grave in silence. From the coach, they dragged a young woman dressed as a bride, her face as pale as her dress. She didn't cry or beg for mercy as her executioners laid her in her grave and covered her with dirt. The men then rode off into the darkness. A local man saw the whole thing from the trees and gathered the other villagers to help. They dug her up and tried to save her, but by sunrise she had died without ever saying a word. They never knew who she was or why those men killed her, but it wasn't the last time people saw her. In the centuries since then, locals have sworn they see her ghost floating on the waters of the moat near where she died, still in her wedding dress and still deathly silent. Next up at number 6 now, we have the catacombs. This is perhaps one of the most famous and creepy parts of Paris. They are a series of tunnels that wind underneath the city. They are said to hold the remains of some 6 million people there. They were first started in the late 18th century to help deal with the city's overflowing cemeteries. A sign at the entrance reads, "Stop. This is the Empire of the Dead." 800 meters of the walkways are just lined entirely with bones. Over the years, locals have shared many stories of dark goings on there among the bones, legends of Masonic cult meetings, black masses, Nazi gatherings, gang fights, and serial killers. Coming at number 5 now, we have the wooden leg. In the Chateau de Combourgy, there is a ghost with a wooden leg. It's said to be the ghost of Comte de Combourg. He was a general who lived there 300 years ago and lost his leg leg in battle, having it replaced by a wooden one. In life, his leg was said to send echoes around the castle so that everyone knew where he was. After he died though, that never went away. In the years since, many visitors have said they've heard his leg thumping around the castle in the night. Some even say they've seen it walking up and down the stairs by itself. No body attached to it, accompanied only by a mysterious black cat. Moving on to number 4 now, we have a strange concert. On June 2nd, 1925, a 24-year-old medical student named John Romier was studying in a garden in Paris. An elderly man approached him dressed in a strange riding coat. The two men began to talk about classical music, and eventually the old man invited John to come and listen to his concert that he was putting on with some friends on Friday. John accepted and asked for his name and address. His name was Alphonse Barrière, and he gave him his address, 3rd floor on the left. Next Friday, John arrived at the given address and was welcomed in, where he met Alphonse's whole family. They were lovely to him, but John couldn't quite shake this strange feeling that something wasn't right. Maybe it was the old-fashioned apartment with its outdated decor and gas lighting. The musicians sat down and performed some classical music, including Mozart. John stayed for a few hours after and talked to Alphonse about music. He thanked him and then he left. Out in the street, he realized he had left his lighter inside. He went up and rang the bell, but there was no answer. He kept trying until a neighbor came out and asked what the problem was. John said he was trying to see Alphonse, but the neighbor said, "I think you're mistaken. Alphonse has been dead for 20 years, and that apartment has been empty since then." John told him that this was impossible. He had just spent a whole night with him and his family. The neighbor started to become suspicious of John and accused him of being a thief. The police unlocked the apartment and took John inside along with the owner of the place, who was actually Alphonse's great-great-great-great-grandson. They walked through the apartment, which was now empty. When they got to the back room, they found a side table covered in dust. There, sitting on top, was John's lighter. Some say that John experienced a real-life time slip. Others refuse to believe this happened at all. Either way, there's an official police report out there that contains this whole story, and many people believe it's still unsolved. At number 3 now, we have the Tuileries Phantom. This is another story involving a man called Jean. He worked as a butcher near the Tuileries Palace in Paris during the reign of Catherine de Medici in the 16th century. She ordered Jean to be killed because he had threatened to reveal many of the royal family's secrets. Just before he was executed, he told his executioner that he would rise from the dead. The executioner left Jean's corpse in the garden. He then went to tell Catherine the deed had been done. When he returned to the garden to dispose of the body, he found Jean's corpse missing. A few days later, the Queen's astrologist reported having a vision. In it, he claimed he saw all of the inhabitants of the palace die a horrible death, and that Jean would haunt the palace until it was destroyed. Not long after that, the executioner was on his way to the palace when he looked behind him and froze in horror. There stood Jean, drenched in blood, as if he was still alive, thus beginning the legend of the Red Man. He is said to have haunted the grounds ever since. People believe that if you come across John, the Little Red Man, that means a terrible tragedy will follow shortly. Next, at number 2 now, we have the Devil's Door of Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a very famous cathedral in Paris. Many visitors notice its elegant side doors with their intricate iron patterns. They were designed by an artist called Biscornet. His talents were known throughout France. The doors were considered a masterpiece, taking months to complete in Biscornet's workshop. Parisians were so impressed that some of them began to doubt that he did it alone. This was the 1300s, an age of deep superstition in Europe. Some people believe that Biscornet had sold his soul to the devil in exchange for this masterpiece. Locals said they had been to his studio during his work hours, where they had found him unconscious on the floor next to the finished piece, which had been mysteriously completed in record time. When they came to first use the door on the cathedral, the priest claimed that they could only get it to work after sprinkling it with holy water. Biscornet died soon after, and in the years since, many experts have struggled to explain how exactly he made this with the basic tools of his time. Some people also point to his name. B means two or twice, while cornet means horn. Put it together and you have the two-horned man. And finally, at number 1 now, we have the Chateau de Brissac. This old French castle in the Loire Valley was first built in the 11th century. It's been almost 1,000 years since then, and its walls have seen some grisly deaths and hauntings. Perhaps the most famous is the story of Charlotte. She was the wife of Jacques de Brezé, the lord of the castle in the 1400s. One night he came home after a hunt and had dinner with Charlotte. Then they went to bed in their separate rooms. The marriage was said to be for political reasons, not love. That night he was woken by his servant who said Charlotte had another man in his room, and it was one of his hunting partners. He flew into a rage, grabbed his sword and attacked both of them, slashing and hacking away. By the time they were dead, their bodies had almost 100 wounds inflicted. Charlotte was actually the half-sister of King Louis VI. He stripped Jacques of all of his titles and took possession of his castle. As for Charlotte, well, people say she never left. Her traumatic death made her a ghost, cursed to haunt the castle forever. They say at night on the walls of the castle you can see a female ghost in a green dress with bloody, gaping holes all over her body. She is silent except for when she returns to the room where she was murdered, where deathly moans and cries can be heard until dawn. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Big Grey Man of Ben Macdui. Amphir Liath Mór is the Gaelic name of a mythical creature known as the Big Grey Man, who is said to dwell at the summit of Scotland's Ben Macdui mountain. Over the years, many climbers have felt his presence or even seen him, a lumbering giant that skulks in the thick fog of the mountain peak. He's often described as being very large, sometimes about 10 feet tall when standing completely upright. Short hairs cover his whole body, especially thick on his broad shoulders. His arms are also said to swing wildly when he's sighted. Sightings of this creature have gone back for centuries, but the first credible account came from Professor Norman Colley in 1891. The day he saw it, he made a note in his journal saying, "I was returning home from a calm on the summit in the mist when I began to think I heard something else other than my own footsteps. For every few steps I took, I heard a crunch and then another crunch as if someone was walking after me, but taking footsteps 3 or 4 times the length of my own." His account ends up going into much more detail, but for many people, this account and a few others are more than enough to convince them of the Big Grey Man of Ben Macdui. Moving on to number 9 now, we have Cathedral House Hotel. This building in Glasgow was originally built in 1877 as a halfway house for prisoners who had been released from the nearby Duke Street prison. That prison was the site of many executions over the years, including 12 in the 20th century. The last person to be executed in Scotland, Susan Newell, was hanged at the prison in October 1923 after being found guilty of strangling a paperboy. In the years since the last execution, locals swear that the spirits of the executed have made their home in the nearby Cathedral House Hotel. Some say they have felt a ghostly presence brush up against them on the staircase. There have also been several reports of 2 ghostly children being heard on the top floor of the hotel and items of furniture moving of their own accord. In 2005, the Ghost Finders Scotland group conducted a thorough investigation using high-tech equipment. They recorded unusual EMF and tri-field readings along with light orbs and various other anomalies appearing on both video footage and still photographs. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Well of the Dead. Nice name. Many Scots will be familiar with the Jacobite Rising of 1746. On April 16th of that year, the Scottish forces fighting for independence from the British were defeated, suffering heavy losses. Many lost their lives on the fields of Culloden. Legend says that birds no longer sing above the boggy land where Jacobites made their final stand. That rhymed, that wasn't intentional. Locals have witnessed a tartan-wearing spirit wandering through the moor there. Those who get close enough manage to hear it muttering one single word: defeated. Every single year on April 16th, the anniversary of the battle, they say you can still hear the clashing of swords and the sound of men dying, locked in their bloody battle for eternity. Moving on to number 7 now, we have Jenny with the Iron Teeth. So we talked about Gorbals in the last video, the Glasgow neighbourhood that's home to Glasgow's necropolis of sorts, where an estimated 50,000 people are buried. As such, it's not too surprising that the area has made it into one of our videos for a second time now, but now it's for a different reason. In 1954, a policeman responded to reports that hundreds of children had descended upon the cemetery. When he arrived, the children had begun to disperse. He questioned them and they swore that 2 children had just been devoured by the Gorbals vampire. Some of you may remember the Gorbals vampire from the last video. Well, the locals didn't believe the children, but not for the reason you might think. They claimed the children had actually actually seen Jenny with the iron teeth. It had been many years since they had heard that name. She is said to be a demonic hag who roamed Glasgow Green in the 19th century, dragging children to her lair with great big metal jaws. The reports made people fear that she had returned, and in the years since then, perhaps she's never left. Coming in at number 6 now, we have Netta Fornario. This is perhaps one of the strangest missing person cases I've ever heard of. Netta Fornario was a member of an occult group called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. They practiced ritual magic, tarot cards, mysticism, and held a solid belief in the powers of telepathy. On top of all that, Netta also had a personal interest in fairies. In 1929, Netta went to the small Scottish island of Iona. Nobody is quite sure why she did it. She arrived at a local inn and spent most of her days wandering the tiny island alone. After a few weeks, her innkeeper woke up to find that Netta was in a frenzy of packing her luggage to leave. Netta said that she needed to leave right away, as several individuals were attacking her telepathically. The innkeeper told her it would be impossible to leave that day, as the boat to the mainland did not run on Sundays. Netta left the room in a rage, returning a few hours later to say that she had decided to stay on Iona after all. She left on one of her walks that night, but when she didn't return later on, her innkeeper raised the alarm. After a 2-day search for her, they found Netta's dead body. A cross had been cut into the turf with a dagger, and Netta's body was lying on top of it. A doctor could not determine how or when she died. Many people believe that she was mentally ill and suicidal, but others argue that she was the victim of some really dark magic. Next up at number 5 now, we have Provan Hall. Many people in Glasgow will know this as one of the oldest buildings in the city. It was built as a hunting lodge for the bishops of Glasgow in 1471. That's more than 20 years before Christopher Columbus set sail. For all you history buffs out there trying to get your head around the dates, it's a pretty old building. It has played host to some distinguished guests as well, including Mary Queen of Scots and her father, King James V. Ghosts have been reported at the hall ever since those days. Locals say they've seen spirits of murderers and also their victims. The master bedroom is said to be haunted by a man with a dagger. They say that in the 19th century he came home from 2 years at war to find his wife had had a baby with another man. In a fit of rage, he stabbed her to death and then slit his own throat. Another less violent ghost that's been seen is that of Reston Mathers. He was a previous owner of the hall who is often seen on the staircase. He died there in 1934 after breathing problems and is said to always be dressed in a black bowler hat and sporting a bright white beard. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Green Lady of Crathis Castle. Many people know of the Green Lady of Crathis Castle, a forlorn spirit that has been seen by an alarming amount of people over the years. The castle was built in the 16th century, and despite its grand size, the Green Lady is only ever seen in one room. She paces back and forth in front of the fireplace there, sometimes cradling an infant in her arms. Apparently, even Queen Victoria herself saw the spectre while staying in the castle one night. Some say that in life the apparition was a servant girl who fell pregnant out of wedlock and mysteriously disappeared soon after. For a while, this was just dismissed as nonsense, but in the 1800s, a grisly discovery was made. While renovating a fireplace, some workmen uncovered the skeletal remains of a woman and child. Even that story has now been lost in the sands of time, but the legend of the Green Lady lives on. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the Dalmarnock Bridge suicide ghost. Even without the ghost, the Gothic style and age of this bridge leaves a stark image in visitors' minds. There has been a bridge on this site going way back to 1821, spanning across the River Clyde. It's also known for a harrowing suicide story. They say that years ago, a man jumped to his death from the bridge. He was 30 years old with short hair, wearing a blue 3/4 length coat and black trousers. In the years since then, many people have reported seeing his ghostly apparition jump to its death over and over again. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the Kelpsie. These are perhaps some of the most feared and famous creatures in Scottish folklore. Most accounts describe these creatures as shapeshifters that often take the form of a horse. When they appear in human male form, they are often very hairy. They jump out out at lone travelers on deserted roads and crush their victims to death. If they appear in human female form, their behavior is altogether different. They take the form of a beautiful woman and lure men to their deaths in the water, much like the sirens we've talked about in other cultures' urban legend videos. In horse form, they're perhaps even more dangerous though. It's said that they entice people to climb on their back for a ride, only to drown them. What's even more twisted is that they apparently target children in particular. Many centuries ago, people in Scotland would be wary of dark or white ponies that appear to be lost. They feared they were kelpies that would take them to a watery grave. One way to spot a kelpie from a normal horse was that kelpies had dripping manes, a sign that they had recently come from water. When a kelpie's tail entered water, it made a sound like thunder, a sure sign to stay indoors as a kelpie was on the prowl. And finally, at number 1 now, we have the Flannan Isles Lighthouse Mystery. These isles are a group of uninhabited rocks off the coast of mainland Scotland. One of the islands is called Eileen Moor and features a grass hill at its highest point. On top of that lies Flannan Isles Lighthouse. A year after it was built, on December 7th, 1900, the new lighthouse keepers arrived. They were Donald MacArthur, Thomas Marshall and James Ducat. The inspector made sure they were okay and then left. Soon after, the island became enveloped in a thick, rolling fog. The inspectors couldn't see the lighthouse from the mainland because of this fog. A ship that went by a week later reported that the lighthouse was not shining its light. After a full 3 weeks, the lighthouse had still not been seen and the men had not returned from their rotation on the island. A rescue ship found that the island was empty. The lighthouse was locked, the clock on the wall had stopped, and there was a cooked meal just sat on the table. The last entry in the log had been made almost 2 weeks before. Authorities concluded they were swept away by a storm, but locals had maintained something supernatural happened on that island and that the fog had something to do with it.
Alright, now I'm going to share the last report from the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. At least for this video anyway, there are tons on the site. This one was reported in Mahoning County, Ohio in July of 2021. Sorry if I'm messing up the pronunciation there. A man had described seeing a strange creature one evening after returning home with his wife and is quoted as saying, "Tonight, yet another sighting by our pond. My wife and I were at dinner and as we arrived home about 8:30 p.m., a large, fast, gray and silver, light brown, covered in fur Bigfoot darted from the bushes in our front into the cattails in our pond on all fours. We both looked at each other and said, 'Did you just see that?' The subject was down low and bent in the middle as it moved. Unlike a dog, its undulating movement was not as fluid as a dog. It was not a bear. It appeared to be from 4 to 5 feet at the back and torso built like a barrel. When it went into the cattails, we were no longer able to see it." Number 5, the 1992 Grassman sighting. Grassman is again the name often given to the big ape-like creature or creatures that so many Ohio locals have spotted. And in this video, taken in eastern Ohio in 1992 by a man named Don Keating, he had spotted what looked like a large hairy creature walking into the forest. He managed to capture it on camera, and though the footage is very grainy and it was a fair distance away from it, there is definitely something walking into the forest. It's not the most convincing video evidence. It's hard to tell what you're looking at, but I do always find something eerie about old 90s VHS footage, and Keating seems to believe he saw some kind of large cryptid. So this video was featured on Monster Quest and features an interview with Keating describing what he saw and that he was a skeptic before this encounter. I always like it when they say there were skeptics before, because it's a bit more convincing that way. At number 4, we have the famous Minerva monster case. Back in 1978, a family living in Minerva, Ohio reported what they believed to be a large, Bigfoot-esque cryptid around their home. The Caton family reported rocks being thrown at their home by the creature and would spot large footprints in their backyard. But There are other reports of a mysterious creature in the area around the same time. Caton's neighbor also spotted the big hairy creature, as well as other residents of the area. The case became known as the Minerva Monster case and gained rather significant media attention at the time. A former Stark County sheriff named Jim Shannon, who had responded to one of the Caton family's reports, is quoted as saying, "They were terrified. I will always believe them. They saw something. It's just, what did they see?" This case has become the subject of a 2015 documentary called Minerva Monster, directed by Seth Breedlove, who we might be talking about in a bit. Next up, we have Mark DeWorth. Mark DeWorth is a Ohio Bigfoot investigator who has collected a fair amount of evidence in the 30 years he's spent on the hunt. He's got footprints, audio recordings, and of course his first-hand encounter, which was the catalyst for his research. The story is he'd been exploring an old strip mine in search of badger dens, was followed out by something which soon stood up and looked at him, a big bipedal hairy creature. If that happened to me, I would not go looking for the creature again. I would move out of Ohio the next morning probably. Thought of an 8-foot tall hairy beast roaming through the woods has always been kind of creepy to me, but having one stare at you in a cave, imagine looking through a cave thinking all you're gonna see that day is maybe some badgers, and then you're met with an 8-foot tall hairy ape man glaring at you. Only I'm allowed to find badgers in this cave. Whether the story is true or not, definitely a terrifying image. A video shared by Spectrum News shows Mark talking to several residents of Warren County, Ohio about his experience with this elusive creature, as well as hearing some of their first-hand accounts. He plays an audio recording, which sounds, again, pretty creepy. I love me some Bigfoot audio recordings. Anyway, Mark DeWorth has been interviewed on tons of podcasts discussing his Sasquatch experiences, so seek those out if you're interested. And at number 2, we have the Seth Breedlove encounter. Seth Breedlove is a filmmaker who's gone on to shoot a series called The Bigfoot Project, which you can find on a YouTube channel called Small Town Monsters. Before he had his first encounter, Seth described himself as a skeptic. In a YouTube video uploaded by Ed Ballant, Seth recounts the time he first encountered what he believes to be a Bigfoot. Seth had been riding down the countryside of Minerva, Ohio, when he spotted what looked to be a large bipedal creature with brown hair running through a clearing on a hill about 50 yards away. And it was fast, clearing the space in less than a second. One of the things that really stuck out to Seth most was the creature's very noticeable musculature, especially in the bicep area. Listening to Seth talk, he doesn't sound like he genuinely believes what he saw. He doesn't seem like he's making anything up on the spot or anything. Whether it was indeed the missing link or something more benign, he definitely did see something. And coming in at our number 1 spot is the Salt Fork footage. This video, once again uploaded by the YouTube channel We Do It Outdoors, is only 10 minutes long, but there's a lot going on with this one. So 2 men were exploring Salt Fork State Park in eastern Ohio, and after hearing some strange noises, they happened to capture footage of what looks to be a large bipedal hairy animal. We have a few different pieces of evidence in this video. We have handheld footage of the creature moving through the trees. We have some drone footage, lots of sounds too. It's a very meaty video. Now, could it be a big guy in a suit? Look, it can always be a big guy in a suit, but I gotta say, if it is a suit, it's not a bad one. It's pretty good. It looks like it has some bulk to it. It doesn't look like just one of those generic gorilla suits you can pick up at Spirit Halloween. And what I like here is that the footage is clear. He's not relying on shaking the camera around or making the video extra grainy to try and obscure the image. And just for those reasons alone, I like this video, even if it isn't real. We also hear some vocalizations going on here, so like I said, it's just a lot happening. Check this one out over at We Do It Outdoors.
Number 4, Ridges Asylum. Ridges Asylum originally opened in 1874 and was known as the Athens Asylum for the Insane. It had 2 wings, one for female patients and one for the male patients. The most violent patients were housed at the outermost tip of each wing. By the start of the 1900s, the asylum had become dangerously overcrowded, and rumors of inhumane treatment at the hands of the overworked staff were growing. Despite this, it was not officially closed until 1993. Some parts of the building are still in use, while other areas are completely abandoned. One of the scariest places in the building is the outline of a body where Margaret Schrilling died in 1979. She apparently got lost in the disused part of the hospital in the winter of 1978-79 and was not found for more than a month. When the corpse was eventually removed, it left a stain that could never be washed away, which just makes me gag thinking about it, but imagine the smell, like, ew. Ugh. She is one of the many ghosts who is said to walk the asylum at night. Strange figures have been seen roaming around the old floors. Others have heard disembodied voices, footsteps, and screaming. Most appealing to imagination is the basement. Some claim severely disabled patients were kept on chains in dungeon-like places. Some say they've even heard the chains being pulled. Oh, and there's also a cemetery on the grounds which holds over 1,930 bodies. Of those, 700 women and 959 men lay under the headstones marked with only a number, which is sad. Number 3. Bobby Mackey's. Built in 1850, Bobby Mackey's is said to be the most haunted nightclub in America. When it was first built, the building served as a slaughterhouse and meat packing facility. The standard for most slaughterhouses of its day, the facility featured a well to collect the runoff of animal blood, innards, and other waste. If that image wasn't icky enough, there have also been several deaths in and around the club throughout the years. The place harbors energy so dark that a portal to hell is rumored to swirl somewhere within its basement. There is strange, suffocating heat, a trash can once flew through the air, and the apparition of a man with a handlebar mustache appears in the mirror. I would not want to get anywhere near that place ever. Number 2. Licking County Jail. Originally opened in 1889, the Licking County Jail is now home to only prisoners serving afterlife sentences. It contains stacks of cramped, grimy cells lining its dimly lit halls. Since being put out of commission, the jail has become a notoriously haunted hotspot. While it was operating, a total of 3 sheriffs and 19 inmates died on the premise. If you make your way to Licking County Jail, it's said you should peer between the cell bars as figures of prisoners are said to peer back. Visitors have reported hearing cell doors slamming, being touched, whispering in your ear, whistles, the sound of footsteps, some of those being what seems residual, the jingling of keys, screams, and moaning, as well as seeing strange light anomalies, full shadow figures, and photos with unexpected images in them. That sounds absolutely terrifying, and I would not want to go there. And coming in at number 1 is Sedamsville Rectory. The Sedamsville Rectory is a historical building that once served as the home for priests of Our Lady of Perpetual Help Church. Priests of questionable moral character were rumored to live here, if you know what I mean, including a man who was moved around considerably before retiring from the priesthood, leaving some to believe the church was covering up his tendency of mistreating animals. His fellow priests later confessed to hearing strange sounds coming from his bedroom and feeling uneasy in his presence. As the alleged site of the mistreatment, it's no shock that the place has some wicked demonic energy. Reports detail strange howling cries and deep scratches appearing in the flesh of workers. The current owner of the building, Terry Scott, even claimed that she was pushed by an invisible force. The presence was so evil that a priest was called in to perform an exorcism, but his efforts did little to keep the demonic energy at bay, and whatever monster lurked in there still remains, and I would not want to mess with it. Number 10. Malabar Farm. Malabar Farm was built in 1939 by Pulitzer Prize-winning author Louis Bromfield and was his home until his death in 1956. But before it was built, another family lived there in the 19th century. Celie Rose, a challenged young woman who lived there with her family, developed a romantic fixation on a neighborhood boy. When Celie's family told her to stop claiming the boy as her fiance, she mixed rat poison in their porridge. Her father and brother died, but her mother survived. At her trial, Celie couldn't understand why her parents didn't come to see her. After all, she said, the rats always came back after her daddy fed them rat poison in the barn. Afterwards, she went on and lived with her mother, whom, yes, she tried to kill, but then Celie poisoned her again, and this time it worked. At age 23, Celie stood trial truly alone, but was found not guilty guilty by reason of insanity and sent to a state hospital. She lived out the rest of her life in an insane asylum, and since then the house has been haunted. One visitor saw a woman dressed like Celie Rose outside the house, people have seen lights flicker, felt a phantom cat, disembodied voices are heard, and there's an overall eerie feeling on the property. Yeah, no kidding. Number 9. Beaver Creek State Park. Although this park is beautiful during the day, it has a darker side at night. A portion of the park was once part of a canal system from the early 1800s. There are 2 locks that are said to be haunted. Jake's Lock is said to be named after a former canal worker who was struck by lightning while walking across the top of the lock. He died instantly, but some claim that on certain nights, especially stormy ones, Jake returns with his ghostly lantern to continue his evening's work. Spooky. Nearby, Gretchen's Lock is said to be haunted by the ghost of a canal worker's daughter. Legend has it her father put her coffin inside the lock until he could load her body onto a ship headed for their homeland. But when the coffin was loaded onto a ship bound for home, the ship was lost at sea and didn't make it. Gretchen, pleading to rejoin her mother, reportedly makes an appearance at the lock every year on the anniversary of her death, which is just very sad. Number 8. The Wandle House. The Wandle House was constructed in 1916 by the Wheeling and Lake Erie Railway with funds contributed by railroaders. The Brewster Railroad YMCA featured 62 dormitory rooms used by the railroad workers, a restaurant, movie theater, and bowling alley. Today, the building is home to the Historical Society and houses memorabilia from baseball team photos, class pictures from Beach City and Brewster schools, railroad memorabilia and equipment, payroll records, and military uniforms. It's filled with tons of history, so those from the past like to visit. While there, you might come across Teresa, who worked in the eatery around the 1940s and 50s. People have also reported hearing noises, seeing doorknobs turning on their own, and dark figures. And even one time, someone who was doing work in the basement of the building watched a person walk through a wall. Let me just say, I've seen a ghost walk through a wall before too, and it's creepy, so it's not something I'd like to see again. Number 7. Crybaby Bridge. Locals say if you stand on the Alliance Area Bridge at night, the sound of crying can be heard. Some say that mothers who did not want their sons or daughters during the baby boom would toss them from the bridge into the river below in the dark of the night. Others believe the cries stem from members of a cult kidnapping locals and ending their lives as part of their secret ritual. And finally, some say ghostly cries stem from a distraught mother who lost it after her daughter would not stop crying. In desperation, she tossed her over the bridge to her death, and upon realizing what she had done, the woman reportedly drove off the bridge her own life. This is all around sad and creepy, but if I heard crying noises without anyone around and on a bridge nonetheless, I would be terrified. Number 6. Old Chestnut Grove Cemetery. The story goes a woman accused of witchcraft was executed and buried at the cemetery. The townsfolk did not erect a marker, but instead built an iron fence around her grave, which was next to an old tree. An indentation next to the tree inside the fence marks her grave, and it's said that bad things will happen to those who get close to her grave. Another variation of the story says that several witches were executed and buried here, and their ghosts continue to haunt this area, which does not shock me. Not only did this happen, but on December 29, 1876, the number 5 Pacific Express was traveling over a high bridge, carrying approximately 159 passengers and crew when the bridge collapsed. It sent the train and the people on it into the ravine below, and 92 people died. Many were burned alive while trapped inside the crushed cars and are buried in a mass grave at this cemetery. Due to this, people have seen ghosts of the passengers, and unexplained voices on tape have been recorded. Number 5. Malsalon Public Library. Let me just say, there's more than books in this building. Before it was a library, it was a house, and former residents Clara Baldwin Barrick and Annie Baldwin both died in the home. Clara lived in the home from 1895 to 1909, and her daughter-in-law Annie died in the home in 1931. This might explain why this place is haunted. Some visitors have heard footsteps or smelt an unfamiliar perfume. Employees get a chill with no explanation in the outreach room located in the basement of the former home. A patron once claimed to have been pushed by an apparition while in the library, and a security camera in the library caught the elevator traveling to the 3rd floor at 3 a.m. The doors opened and a bright light could be seen, and the phenomena has been caught on tape several times, and there is no explanation, and that is just like an immediate no. No. Director Sherry Brown, who has worked at the library since 1979, said she was working in her office, a former bedroom of the home, after the library closed when she thought she saw an employee walk past her office door. She yelled out but got no answer. When she investigated, she found no one. Paranormal investigators have conducted research in the library and have gotten responses from the ghosts during electronic voice phenomenon sessions, and if you thought libraries were boring, let me just say this one definitely isn't. Number 4. Lock 4 Park. An incident occurred here in 1857 which has resulted in the park being haunted. A canal worker, whom some say was the lock tender, may have been angry about the potential of work being shut down and wanted revenge. The angry worker doused his fellow workers with a container of acid or some type of caustic liquid. It said the enraged worker tossed the lid open and flung the contents on his fellow workers, dumping the remnants on himself. Legend states that no immediate deaths ensued, but rather the men suffered gruesome, slower deaths that took several days. A few men perished due to their acid-eaten skin and organs. The man responsible also died. Today, screams and moans of those who were burned by the acid supposedly can still be heard by some if they listen closely while visiting Lock 4 Park. Also, the lock tender's cabin, which is located in the park, may also be haunted by the spirit of the angry worker. Number 3. Franklin Castle. Franklin Castle is reported to be the most haunted house in Ohio. Rumors about the eerie castle began to surface after multiple deaths occurred in the Tiedemann family while living in the mansion. The home was built in 1883 by Haynes Tiedemann, a banker and co-founder of the Union Banking and Savings Company. And let me just add that the house has 4 stories and more than 20 rooms and 80 windows. Now, Haynes allegedly tore down another house on the property where 4 of his children had died. His first wife, Lucia, died inside Franklin Castle in the 1890s. The American businessman would eventually bury 3 more of his children and his mother. Since then, the location has been the site of mysterious hauntings. A family with 6 children called the Romanos had moved into the house, and on the day they moved in, 2 of their children said they encountered a crying girl in white on the 3rd floor. But when Miss Romano investigated, no one was there. Soon, the family started hearing haunting organ music and heavy footsteps. 2 of the older Romano children woke up one night to find something yanking the blankets off their bed, and Miss Romano once awoke to find herself screaming on her bedroom floor with an unseen presence screaming beside her. A priest advised the Romanos to move out, and in 1974 they did. But the hauntings didn't stop when the Romanos left. From there, the house was sold again and again and again. Each new occupant reported strange occurrences like passing through odd vapors, hearing a child crying, or seeing a woman in black standing in the window. Since reports of hauntings at Franklin's Castle increased, many turned their suspicions onto its original owner. Number 2. Sister Century House Restaurant. Now a restaurant, this building has seen a lot in the past. It was built in 1870 and has been home to several businesses in historic Canal Fulton throughout the years. It currently houses a family-owned restaurant, but was most notably home to a crematorium, which was located in the basement back in the early 1900s. I mean, since this place was once filled with dead people, it's no shock that it's haunted. There have been rumors of shadow people, a poltergeist in the kitchen, ghostly ladies in the basement, the entrance to an old tunnel, and even an unusual room that makes people a bit dizzy. The food, though, seems to be great, as the restaurant has a 4.6 star rating, so if you want to see some ghosts and have a great meal, I suggest you check this place out. And coming in at number 1, the Ohio State Reformatory. The Ohio State Reformatory opened its doors on September 15, 1896 to its first 150 offenders. These prisoners were brought by train from Columbus and put immediately to work on the prison sewer system in the 25-foot stone walls surrounding the complex. The reformatory remained in full operation until December 1990, when it was closed via federal court order as a result of a prisoner's class action suit citing overcrowding and inhumane conditions. For example, in the late 1930s, a riot broke out in the East Cell Block. The guards condemned 120 rioters to share 12 solitary confinement cells for 1 week without food or water. This punishment drove many to the brink of madness and death. During its 94 years as a working prison, 154,000 inmates passed through the gates of the Ohio State Reformatory. Many died of diseases like influenza and tuberculosis, some went mad, others ended their lives, and at least 1 inmate lit himself on fire. Just Just outside the reformatory, there are 215 numbered graves. While visiting, people have reported being pushed and punched by unseen forces. Many claim to feel a chill while on the prison grounds. People have also heard cell doors slam shut and seen dark apparitions. Even the road leading to the Ohio State Reformatory seems to be haunted. Local legend suggests it's the ghost of Phoebe Wise, a notorious hermit and eccentric.
Next up at number 4 now, we have the Grassman. You can think of this one as Ohio's version of Bigfoot. It's said to have all the same characteristics, a tall bipedal hominid that skulks around Ohio's deep woods. The Grassman gets its name from apparently building small hut-like structures or nests made out of tall grass. The first sighting occurred in 1978 when some local kids ran into their grandparents' home screaming about a hairy monster they had just seen in the gravel pit outside. When the grandparents went outside to investigate, they saw it too. They said it was covered in dark matted hair, sitting in the pit and fiddling with some trash. They later estimated it to be about 300 pounds. The family fled, but it wasn't the last time that they or many other locals saw them. When people started investigating, they found records from the 1700s of Native Americans in the area who spoke of a race of bipedal ape men. They referred to them as the wild ones of the woods and would often leave food out for them in an effort to keep the peace. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Cincinnati Music Hall. This is a classical music performance hall in Cincinnati, completed in 1878. Before construction was even finished, it was said the location was a place where the dead render the lives of the living a burden to them. How intense does that sound? When a nearby canal was being made, authorities found over 100 human skeletons that had to be removed. They buried them in the ground on which this building now stands on. More remains were placed there in 1838 when a steamboat exploded and flung bodies all over the city. They were also buried in the ground below the music hall. If that wasn't enough to creep you out, it also stands atop of an old orphan asylum and an old Civil War hospital. All of this has resulted in locals claiming it's the most haunted place in town. One night watchman felt the presence of ghosts there. He said, "They never touch me, but I always know when they are around, by an icy chill, a thrill of electricity. They never annoy me now by mere knocking, for I have gotten so used to it. So used to it that sometimes when people have really knocked at the door, I didn't open, because I thought it was only the dead that kept knocking, knocking, knocking." Well, I'm glad he can be so calm with dead people knocking at the door at night. Most of us would just nope right out of there. I know I definitely would. Moving on to number 2 now guys, we have Lake Hope Furnace. During the Industrial Revolution, this furnace was used to process iron ore gathered from the area's sandstone bedrock. After 20 years, the furnace is shut down, but some say creepy stories still remain. They say that in order to ensure the furnace continued operating at night, watchmen were employed to tend to the furnace fires. On one fateful night, a watchman was walking along the platform with his lantern when he slipped in the darkness and fell into the bubbling ore inside the furnace. He screamed out for help, but was consumed in seconds. Now, legend says that on stormy nights, a ghostly watchman returns to make his rounds. There have been dozens of reports of a dark figure carrying a lantern walking along the top of Lake Hope Furnace. Some even say the figure continues pacing back and forth across the furnace until lightning strikes nearby, causing him to disappear until the next stormy night. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Defiance Werewolf. This is a very famous one. The people of Defiance in Ohio have claimed that for the past 45 years or so, they've been terrorized by a werewolf. It was first sighted in 1972. Over the summer, there were many sightings of a rampaging, hair-covered beast on 2 legs. It was said to have a muzzle and was always covered in rags. The local media went into a frenzy, and even the police opened up a case file on the sightings. There have been many sightings since then. Many of them were around a series of old railroad tracks in the town, usually late at night. One of the first sightings was by a Mr. Davis. Now he said, "I was connecting an air hose between 2 cars and was looking down. I saw these huge hairy feet. Then I looked up and he was standing there with that big stick over his shoulder. When I started to say something, he took off for the woods." His friend Mr. Jones was with him at the time. He said, "At first I thought the whole thing was a big joke, but when I saw how hairy and woolly it was, that was enough for me." Next up at number 8 now, we have Brubaker Bridge. According to legend, in the 1930s there was a brutal one car accident on this bridge over Sam's Run Creek, Butler County. The bridge is in a very rural area and nobody actually discovered the crash victims until later that night when a local farmer passed by. The farmer went to get help and a total of 12 bodies were recovered. They were eventually identified and given proper burials. That wasn't the end of things though. Shortly after, the farmer who originally discovered the bodies claimed that while crossing the bridge one night after, his car suddenly cut out. He said that he heard 13 knocks on his car, then a hissing noise before suddenly the car just came back to life. Locals say that this is the spirit of the 13th victim whose body was never recovered. The spirit is still said to haunt those who pass over the bridge, hoping they will be the ones to finally find its body and give them a proper burial so that they may pass on peacefully. Next up at number 7 now we have Stony Creek Cemetery. The story goes like this. In 1825, the local caretaker in Stony Creek Cemetery in Adams County made a discovery. At the bottom of a large tree was the body of a young man. It didn't take much to figure out the cause of death as the man's head was completely missing. Although it's hard to beat that in terms of strangeness, there was one other thing. The crime scene was clean of any blood around this headless body. The police determined the murder must have taken place somewhere else before the perpetrator then dumped the body in the cemetery. Rumours began to spread that the head had not been cut off but rather ripped off by something extremely powerful. The case remained open and unsolved for many years before entering books of folklore. There are those that say that some nights a misty figure appears under a tree in the cemetery, the ghost of this unidentified man, unable to find peace until his murder is solved. Moving on to number 6 now guys, we have Patterson Tower. There are a number of theories about the origin of this strange tower, thought to be built by a John D. Patterson many years ago. According to legend, a group of teenagers in the 1960s took refuge in the tower during a thunderstorm. As the storm raged on, a lightning bolt hit the top of the tower. Electricity surged down the metal stair rail and electrocuted 2 of the teenagers, killing them almost instantly. They say that in the weeks afterwards, you could still see their charred outlines on the tower wall. Officials blocked off the tower from dark tourists by placing metal plates across the door. Visitors still just ripped them off though to see what was inside. Legend now says that on stormy nights, the shadowy spirits of the teenagers who died can be seen in the tower. A bright bolt of lightning will illuminate their ghosts, making them glow as if they had just been hit by lightning. When the storm fades, so do they. Until the next time. Coming at number 5 now, we have Little Sugar Creek. The town of Bellbrook is sometimes referred to as Ohio's Sleepy Hollow because of all the ghostly legends that originated there. A man called James Buckley ran a sawmill there many years ago. He lived in a small cabin and grew his business to great heights, becoming the wealthiest man in the town. One night, his newfound wealth attracted some robbers. When authorities finally arrived to help him, they found Buckley's headless body outside. The murder was never solved. People say the cabin was haunted then by his spirit. Those who ventured there say they've been confronted by a headless ghost, his arms outstretched as if begging for help. In time, the sawmill was demolished, but that didn't bring an end to the sightings. Locals still say that if you wander down to Little Sugar Creek, where the sawmill once stood, you can still see the ghost of James Buckley, unable to pass on peacefully while the case of his brutal murder has been left cold. Moving on to number 4 now, we have Otterbein Cemetery. This one is also known as Bloody Horseshoe Grave. During the 1840s, an Ohioan called James Henry was involved with 2 women at the same time, Rachel Hodge and Mary Angle. He wanted to know which one to marry. One night while riding home, he fell asleep on his horse. He awoke to find his horse had not taken him home, but had instead stopped in front of Mary Angle's house. He took this as a sign, and soon he and Mary were married. As his wedding gift to her, he gave her the horse that brought them together. They lived happily, but in 1845, Mary died from one of the many prevalent diseases at the time. She was buried in Otterbein Cemetery. Henry began courting Rachel Hodge, and eventually the 2 were married. He gave her the same horse as a wedding gift. They hadn't been married long before locals noticed something strange about Mary's tombstone. There was a glowing outline of a horseshoe on it. James took this as a sign that Mary was displeased with his new marriage. They said he was cursed. One night, witnesses heard strange noises and lights coming from the cemetery. The next morning, James was found dead in his barn with the mark of a horseshoe on his forehead. His death was ruled an accident, as Henry had been alone in the barn at the time. All alone except for one other creature, a horse. Even today, they say a strange horseshoe mark is still visible on Mary's tombstone, and that on some nights you can hear the sound of hooves trotting up the cemetery road. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Buxton Inn. This place has been going since 1812, making it one of the oldest inns in Ohio. In the mid-1800s, Major Buxton, after whom the inn was named, took control of the inn. There have been reports of ghosts there ever since. Many of the ghosts alleged to haunt the inn are said to be of previous owners. However, there's also strange knockings people have heard coming from the basement where the stagecoach drivers would have stayed. The door to that same basement is known to open and close by itself, and there have even been reports of footsteps coming up and down the stairs there. Major Buxton's spirit is said to be a shadowy figure, often sighted in the dining room. Another owner, Orrin Granger, appears as an elderly woman wearing old-fashioned breeches who is said to steal pies from the kitchen. There's also the Lady in Blue, who died in the inn and is recognisable by her distinct perfume. There's even a phantom cat that enters people's rooms at night in much the same way it did when it was alive. Next up at number 2 now, we have Old Raritan. The story goes that as European settlers first began to arrive in the Ohio Valley, wolf attacks on livestock became more and more frequent. Farmers began to hunt down the wolves, possibly to the point of extinction, but none of them could have predicted what came next. One wolf in particular always managed to escape the farmers. A huge grey one became known as Old Raritan. Farmers often reported seeing him and his mate wandering through the woods, but they never could corner him. Eventually, they became the only wolves that remained. One night, the wolves were trapped with their backs against Big Rock, a famous landmark. The hunters opened fire and brought the female down. Just as the hunters set their dogs loose to finish her off, a loud cry echoed through the woods. Old Raritan leapt in front and fought the dogs off. The hunters opened fire and wounded him too. Eventually, they called off their dogs. Old Raritan dragged his now dead mate up to the top of Big Rock. Once there, he let out a thunderous howl across the backdrop of the moon and then slumped down beside his mate. All was quiet, but not forever. On certain nights, locals say you can still hear a painful howl, and that if you head to the top of Big Rock, you'll be faced with the ghost of Old Raritan, still ready to fight in his afterlife. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Bloody Bridge. Sometimes you can just tell from these titles where these stories are heading. This bridge lies just outside of Spencerville, crossing the Miami-Erie Canal. According to legend, the bridge was the site of a grisly murder in 1854. In the years before that, a rivalry grew between 2 local men, Bill Jones and Jack Billings. Both had fallen for a woman called Minnie Warren. In the end, Minnie chose Jack, sending Bill into a fit of rage. One night in 1854, Minnie and Jack began to cross the bridge on their way home from a party. At the other end though, stood Bill. He was holding an axe. They didn't have time to run. Bill took one swing and severed Jack's head clean off. Minnie screamed and jumped off the bridge and into her watery grave. Bill then disappeared until his skeleton was found years later in a well. Was it or revenge from the couple's family? Either way, the years since then have seen reports of ghostly images of the murdered couple on the bridge. Some even say that when the water gets dark enough, you can look over the bridge and see Minnie Warren's face staring right back at you in horror.
Number 10. The Bisman Building. The Bisman Building was built in 1886, and fun fact, the film Shawshank Redemption used this place as a filming location. If you have seen the film, the building is used as the entrance to the Brewer Hotel, where Brooks and Red stayed after they were paroled from Shawshank. The real building, though, is haunted. While here many people experience a feeling of dread and sadness, particularly on the 3rd floor. Many people also report an overwhelming sensation of darkness when on this floor, so if I were you, I would just stay away from the 3rd floor in general. Disembodied footsteps, voices, being poked and pushed, black shadows, and dark figures caught in images seems to be something that happens a lot. Spirits of a young girl Ruthie, her aunt, and the spirit of a retired worker who died in an accident before leaving the building are 3 identified spirits that stay here. In past investigations here, investigators have received audible responses to their questions. Yep, the ghosts spoke to them. One piece of audio evidence was when an investigator asked if they could speak to Ruthie, and a voice was caught saying, "Is Ruthie here?" In addition to Ruthie, people have witnessed the spirit of a woman throughout the upper floors. people in Victorian clothing, and the sounds of people working. Number 9. Staley Road. Sometime in the early 1800s, pioneer John Wrench used the services of 3 Staley brothers to build a flour mill. The finished structure was to become the first double-wheeled mill in Ohio. The business flourished, and after several years, John had made enough money to retire and ended up selling his mill to Elias Staley. The mill was then passed down to his brother Andrew and continued to produce flour until 1905. Today, the mill is still standing, and on Staley Road, named for the brothers, winds its way past and through the woods. It has become something of a rite of passage for local teens to drive this road at night to show how brave they are. It's been said that Old Man Staley went on a rampage, ending the lives of many, and is now haunting the road. Motorists say that they often experience unexplained car trouble, and some have even seen Staley's ghost standing next to or even lying in the road. Number 8. The Golden Lamb. As the oldest hotel in Ohio, the Golden Lamb has seen more than its share of famous guests, including Charles Dickens, Mark Twain, Daniel Webster, and 12 American presidents. Yeah. 12. It's fantastic, but there's also been death and tragedy in the hotel. Guests have cited a girl who may be Sarah Stubbs, the niece of the hotel manager in the 1800s, or possibly Eliza Clay, a girl who died of a high fever at the hotel in 1825. The ghost of Charles R. Sherman, an Ohio Supreme Court justice who died at the inn in 1929, is said to appear in the hallways as a gray, gaunt man and conjures the smell of cigar smoke. Charles's death left his wife and 11 children, including Civil War General William T. Sherman, penniless. As a result, most of his children were put up for adoption, and some say the guilt of his family's demise keeps his spirit at the inn. Number 7. Moonville Tunnel. Located deep in the woods, the tunnel is framed by a faded stone archway covered in moss. The tunnel itself is long and extremely dark. It's actually an out-of-work stretch of railroad track that leads to an old coal mining town. If you're brave enough to venture through it, you might see the ghost of Frank Lawhead, an unlucky train conductor who met his end in a head-on collision with another train. Visitors in the area have taken photos with cameras or phones, only to look back at them later and notice the pale figure of a man they didn't see before, or phantom train lights blazing at the end of the tunnel. It's also said if you listen carefully, inhale deeply, and blink intermittently, you may encounter spirits from another time. The piercing whistle of a train rounding a curve, the smell of lavender wafting from a woman in an old-fashioned dress, or even the glow of gaslit lantern illuminating the face of the weathered brakeman. So that's fun. Number 6. The Buxton Inn. The Buxton Inn was built by Orrin Granger in 1812 as an inn and tavern, and it also served as Granville's first post office and as a stagecoach stop. I'm just gonna say it, this place is haunted. The first ghost spotted in the Buxton Inn was the first owner, Orrin. Other ghosts include the Lady in Blue, rumored to be the former innkeeper Ethel Bonnie Bonnell, Major Buxton, whom the inn was named, and even a phantom cat seen slinking along the halls. There's been strange activity like footsteps and doors opening on their own reported in the inn's basement, where stagecoach drivers would often stay during their stopovers in the past. However, the ghosts just don't stay in the basement. Oh no. Rooms 7 and 9 are said to be the strongest places for activity, with apparitions appearing. One guest even reported a ghost cat showing up to cuddle and purr in the middle of the night, which, aw, that's so cute. Guests have reported strange phenomenon throughout the hotel though, like their names being called out and invisible footsteps. I would not want to sleep there. Number 5. Woods surrounding London. Okay, again, not London, England, but London, Ohio. Deep inside these woods sits an old abandoned barn that is so rotted away it is practically melded back into the trees. It's rumored that ghosts like to spend some time here. If you ask anyone from the area, they'll tell you that these woods are haunted. According to legend, a family of 5 was traveling through the woods in the late 1890s when they were stopped and had their lives ended by a band of thieves. Those brave enough to wander through the woods of London at night have reported hearing gunshots and disembodied screaming. Others have felt a sudden drop in temperature before seeing a strange white mist hanging in the trees. Let me just say, it's a no from me.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Loveland Frog. As someone who is not from Ohio, this is probably the most famous of all the Ohio urban legends I came across. The Loveland Frog is an urban legend that originated in Loveland, Ohio in the 1950s, and according to the legend, a group of local men spotted a humanoid, frog-like creature near the Little Miami River. They claimed that the creature was about 4 feet tall, had leathery skin, and webbed hands and feet. Over the years, there have been several reported sightings of the Loveland Frog, including one in 1972 by a police officer named Ray Shockey. Shockey claimed that he saw a strange creature. It's so funny that his name is Shockey and that he saw like a strange what is more shocky? You know what I mean? Shockey claimed that he saw a strange creature on the side of the road while on patrol. When he got closer, he saw that it was a creature with leathery skin and frog-like features. Shockey drew his gun and fired at the creature, but it quickly ran away and disappeared. The legend of the Loveland Frog has become a very popular topic among paranormal enthusiasts and cryptozoologists. Some believe that the creature could be an undiscovered species of amphibian or reptile, while others think it could be a hoax or a misidentification of a known animal. Regardless of its origins, the legend of the Loveland Frog has become a part of Ohio folklore, and the creature has become an iconic figure in the world of cryptozoology. In our number 9 spot today, we have Ohio State Reformatory. Also known as Mansfield Reformatory, this spooky place is a former prison located in Mansfield, Ohio. It opened in 1896 and it closed in 1990. The prison is known for its very violent history and inhumane conditions, with reports of harm, bad conditions, and overcrowding. The prison is also rumored to be haunted, with many visitors reporting strange occurrences such as cold spots, unexplained noises, and ghostly apparitions. One of the most famous ghosts said to haunt the prison is that of Helen Glatke, the wife of a former superintendent who died in a car accident outside of the prison. Her spirit is said to still wander the prison, often appearing in the chapel or the administration area. Another famous ghost is that of the ghost in the tower, believed to be the spirit of a former inmate who died in a tragic accident while working in the prison's bell tower. Visitors have reported hearing his screams and seeing his ghostly figure in the tower. The prison has been featured in several films and TV shows, including The Shawshank Redemption and Ghost Adventures, which of course only worked to further popularize its reputation as a haunted location. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Lake Hope Furnace. The Lake Hope Furnace in Ohio has a dark and haunting history that has given rise to many tales of paranormal activity. The furnace was built in the mid-19th century to process iron ore mined in the area. Many workers lost their lives due to the dangerous working conditions, and the furnace was shut down in the early 1900s. Over the years, visitors to the area have reported strange occurrences, including unexplained noises, sudden drops in temperature, and ghostly apparitions. Many believe that the spirits of the workers who died at the furnace still haunt the area. One of the most famous stories associated with the Lake Hope Furnace is that of a ghostly woman in a white dress who is said to wander the grounds. Legend has it that the woman was the wife of a worker who was killed in an accident at the furnace. She is said to be searching for her husband's lost wedding ring, which she believes is still somewhere on the property. Another ghostly tale is that of a former worker who is said to have lost his life here but was never able to leave. Visitors have reported seeing his spirit coming by the furnace in order to light it. While he carries a lantern in one hand, if anybody gets too close to him, it's said he vanishes into the darkness. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Werewolf of Defiance. The legend of the Werewolf of Defiance in Ohio dates back to the early 1900s. According to the story, a man who lived in the woods near Defiance was rumored to have transformed into a werewolf on nights of the full moon. Local residents claimed to have heard howls and seen a large wolf-like creature lurking in the shadows. Some even reported close encounters with the creature, which was said to be larger and more ferocious than any normal wolf. Despite numerous attempts to hunt the creature, the werewolf was never caught. The legend of the Werewolf of Defiance continues to be a popular topic of discussion in the area, and many believe that the creature still roams the woods to this day. Whether the Werewolf of Defiance was a real creature or simply a product of local folklore remains a mystery. In our number 6 spot today, we have Satan's Hollow. Satan's Hollow is a drainage tunnel located in Blue Ash, Ohio, and it has been long rumored to be the site of supernatural activity. According to legend, the tunnel was once used by a group of Satanists who performed dark rituals and sacrifices within its walls. People who have ventured into the tunnel have reported seeing strange strange symbols and hearing ghostly whispers. Some have even claimed to have witnessed apparitions of demons and other supernatural beings. The legend of Satan's Hollow has attracted many curious visitors over the years, and some have reported strange experiences such as unexplained temperature drops and sudden feelings of unease. Despite warnings from authorities and the dangers of the tunnel itself, and the fact that the tunnel is technically private property, many continue to seek out the site in search of thrills and scares, looking for the creature behind the most haunting tale of all, the Shadow Man. In our number 5 spot today we have the Ridges. Athens Lunatic Asylum, also known as the Ridges, is a former mental institution located near Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. It has a long history of ghostly tales and supernatural occurrences. According to legend, the asylum was a site of brutal treatments and patient mistreatment, leading to the creation of restless spirits haunting the halls. There have been reports of shadowy figures, disembodied voices, and inexplicable noises, leading many to believe that the spirits of former patients still linger within the abandoned building. One of the most famous stories is that of Margaret Schilling, a patient who disappeared in 1978 and was found later dead in a hidden attic room. Her decomposing body left a stain on the floor that is said to be impossible to remove. The asylum has become a popular destination for paranormal investigators and thrill seekers, with many claiming to have had chilling experiences while exploring the abandoned institution. Despite its dark history and eerie reputation, the Athens Lunatic Asylum remains an important reminder of the past and the need for compassionate and ethical treatment of those suffering from mental illness. In our number 4 spot today we have Eugene. This is less of a creepypasta and more of an enduring mystery, and it all starts with a John Doe story. In 1929, the body of an older male appeared on the side of the road in Ohio. No one was ever able to identify who the man was, no one knew where he came from or really had anything to go on. The only possible clue he had on him was an address, but it just led to a vacant lot. The closest neighbor to the address was named Eugene, so they decided to call this unidentified man Eugene as well. This is where a bit of a twist comes in. Instead of burying him, they decided to keep Eugene on display as a roadside attraction. Truly wish I was making that up, because first of all, Eugene deserves better than that, but also, who wants to see a dead body as a tourist attraction? For 35 years, Eugene was put on display until he was finally laid to rest. This is what has led his tombstone to read, Eugene, found dead in 1929, buried in 1964. To this day, we still don't quite know who Eugene was, where he came from, or what his story truly was. In our number 3 spot today, we have Beaver Creek. Beaver Creek State Park in Ohio is a popular destination for outdoor enthusiasts, but it is also the home to a very spooky urban legend. The park is said to be haunted by the ghost of a woman who drowned in the creek many years ago. According to the legend, the woman's body was never found, and her ghost now wanders the park searching for her lost family. There are also reports of strange noises and ghostly apparitions in and around the park's historic buildings, such as the Gaston's Mill and the log cabins. Some visitors have reported feeling a sense of unease or being watched while exploring the park, particularly at night. Another one of the most well-known ghost stories associated with Beaver Creek State Park is the legend of the headless motorcyclist. According to the legend, a man lost his head in a motorcycle accident on the road that runs through the park. His ghost now rides his motorcycle through the park looking for his missing head. Some visitors claim to have seen the ghostly figure on his motorcycle, while others have reported hearing the sound of a motorcycle engine revving in the distance. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Coin Mansfield incident. What is a good old list of legends and spooky stories without a very real UFO incident, and perhaps one of the best known UFO sightings to take place in the state of Ohio. The Coin Mansfield helicopter incident occurred on October 18, 1973, when 4 members of the Ohio Army National Guard were flying in a helicopter over Mansfield, Ohio. Suddenly, they encountered a large metallic disc-shaped object that was hovering in the sky. The object began to move towards the helicopter, causing the crew to take evasive maneuvers. Despite their efforts, the object continued to follow them, eventually passing overhead and disappearing into the distance. The crew reported the incident to their superiors, and an investigation was launched by the military and the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. The incident received significant media attention, and it remains one of the most compelling UFO sightings on record. What makes this incident particularly intriguing is the credibility of the witnesses. The crew were all experienced pilots with military training, and their account of the incident was corroborated by radar data and other witnesses on the ground. Despite extensive investigations, no satisfactory explanation has ever been offered for what they saw that day. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Gore Orphanage. Gore Orphanage is an abandoned building located in Vermilion, Ohio, that has long been the subject of haunting tales and urban legends. According to legend, in the early 1900s, a fire broke out in the building, killing everyone inside. The ghosts of those lost in the fire are said to haunt the surrounding woods and the building, and visitors have reported hearing the sounds of children's laughter and cries. Some versions of the legend claim that the orphanage was actually a satanic cult site where humans were sacrificed in bizarre rituals. Others claimed that the place was actually just a place where real, non-magic or demonic related horrors took place. Despite the lack of evidence to support these claims, the legend of Gore Orphanage persists and has inspired numerous ghost hunters and paranormal investigators to explore the abandoned building. However, it is important to note that the building is private property and trespassing is illegal, okay? So don't say I didn't warn ya.
And we're kicking off this list with a very recent Ohio Bigfoot report. This one is detailed on the BFRO, or the Bigfoot Field Researchers website, where there are tons of different eyewitness reports of the elusive beast, but this is a good one to start off with because it just happened back in January of this year. On January 22nd, on a snowy afternoon in Warren County, Ohio, a family reported seeing a big creature standing near a bike path while they were driving down the road. The father of the family wrote, "As we were driving along State Route 350 towards State Route 123, south of Oregonia, we came to the Loveland Bike Trail that runs next to the Little Miami River. As I slowed down near the bike path crossing, we looked out the passenger side of the car and saw a large black figure standing a distance up the bike path facing the river. While it was snowing, the ground was covered with at least 3 inches of snow, so it didn't appear that someone would be on the bike path biking or walking the trail. The weather was not ideal for anyone to be hunting or walking on the path at the time. The figure appeared to have come from the woods and was walking towards the river." He also described the figure as having no obvious clothing pattern, being consistently dark, and that his wife and 2 teenage children also spotted it. There have apparently been at least 9 credible sightings of a supposed Bigfoot-like creature in the same area too. Number 9, Bigfoot howls. In this video uploaded by We Do It Outdoors, we see our cameraman roaming through a forest in Lore City, Ohio. The sun is starting to set and we hear a series of strange, eerie howls and tree knocks. We Do It Outdoors seems to have started as a channel about maintaining lawns, but over the last few years there have been a number of Bigfoot related videos uploaded on there, one of which I may or may not be discussing later in the list. And whether they're real or not, some of them are pretty entertaining. We get some genuinely creepy sounds in this video. It definitely sounds like something or someone is howling in the distance. If I heard sounds like this while I was in the forest, I'd just turn right around immediately. This guy sticks around until it's like fully dark and the sounds just get louder and louder. Real or not, it's definitely a creepy video. Number 8, the Jefferson County report. Next up, I have another report detailed on the Bigfoot Field Researchers website. This incident was reported in July of 2021, still pretty recent, in Jefferson County, Ohio. A man describes finding a large footprint in his chicken coop, as well as all of his chickens having gone missing. He's quoted saying, "On July 9th at approximately 10 a.m., I noticed my 5 chickens were missing. The chicken coop was full of feathers, but no bodies or blood. I did a perimeter check and came across an extremely large footprint. I went back to the house and brought down a tape measure to the footprint and measured it and took pictures with the tape measure beside it. The footprint measured a length that was apparently 18 inches with a width of about 9 to 10 inches. A Bigfoot investigator named Jim Thompson came to investigate the man's property and discovered more footprints that were about 4 feet apart from one another. That's about double the gait of an average person, by the way. On July 24th, a couple weeks after making his initial report, the man described hearing strange strange yelps coming from either end of his property as if they were yelping back and forth to each other. And he also said that on some nights he gets an eerie feeling that something is watching him. I have that almost every night too. At number 7 we have Susan Ferenchak. Suzanne Ferenchak is a former skeptic turned Bigfoot enthusiast. After spotting a strange hairy creature near her home in Loudonville, Ohio, she had first spotted what she described as a big black-furred creature jump over the road. Not sure where said road was exactly or what type of road it was. If it was a highway road, that would be nuts. It was just a small dirt road. Still scary, not quite as impressive though. Suzanne has recorded audio of what she believes to be a Sasquatch while out in the wilderness near her home and has shared the 2-minute clip online. I gave it a listen. The quality, not great, but it's definitely eerie. You hear this distant howling. It definitely doesn't sound like a wolf. You also get some classic, whoops in there too, which a lot of Bigfoot researchers describe Sasquatches, making. Whether it's a genuine Bigfoot or not, I really just dig supposed Bigfoot audio. I just imagine being out alone in the woods at night and hearing some distant wail and whooping, and human or not, it'd be pretty bone-chilling.
At number 10, we have the green-clawed beast. Imagine you're out enjoying your afternoon, lounging on an inner tube, floating in the river, when all of a sudden you are attacked by a creature. Because that is exactly what happened to a woman named Naomi Johnson. On August 21st of 1955, Miss Johnson was out enjoying a swim with her friend in Ohio River near Evansville, Indiana. While swimming, Miss Johnson said that she was suddenly grabbed and pulled underwater by a large, hairy claw hand. She struggled underwater until she was able to kick herself free. She resurfaced only to shortly be pulled under again by this creature. Thankfully, Miss Johnson managed to escape once again. When she reached land, she had multiple bruises and wounds on her leg, one of which was a green claw print shaped hand. Now, Miss Johnson never got a good look at the creature, but could sense how big and strong it was from the force it used on her. This encounter was reported to an Air Force colonel who took detailed notes and then told Miss Johnson and her friend to never mention it again. Very suspicious. What is this man hiding? Was it a creature of his own that escaped? No one knows. But what they do know is to never swim in that river again.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Clown Graveyard. With a name like that, you probably think it's a metaphor for something, but the name is literal and the story is tragic. In Forest Park, Illinois lies Woodlawn Cemetery. Some of the graves there are marked by elephant statues. An engraving at the base of one large elephant is inscribed with the words Showman's League of America. All of the graves are marked with the same death date, June 22nd, 1918. On that fateful night, members of the Hagenbeck Wallace Circus were asleep in the rear cars of a train that was passing through the area. At 4 AM, they stopped in the town of Hammond, Indiana to cool an overheated axle box. Little did they know that right behind them, a train driver had fallen asleep at the helm of his empty military train. He missed all the automatic signals and flares that warned him of the stalled train. He smashed right into the wooden circus cars. The survivors tried to scramble out, but soon the train lanterns had ignited the wreckage. It's thought that up to 110 circus employees were killed. They were buried in the mass graves. Many of the victims' names were not even known. So some of the markings have engravings like Baldy, 4-horse driver, or unidentified male. They say that their restless spirits still haunt the graveyard. Apparently they are also joined with the spirits of some of the circus elephants that died. Locals say that to this day the sound of phantom elephants can be heard at night, which I think is a lot creepier than humans. I don't know. Moving on to number 9 now, guys, we have the Thunderbirds. I wish this one was about the nice puppet show that I used to watch as a kid, but it's not. The Thunderbirds are creatures that many people have seen in Illinois, giant birds with wingspans of up to 20 feet. One famous local legend in the town of Alton is that of the Piasa bird, a name given by the Illinois Native Americans meaning bird that devours a man. Now that gives you guys a little clue as to why people fear them. Although the legend has existed for hundreds of years, things took a turn in the 1970s. In 1973, Ruth Lowe was cleaning up after her family had dinner in Lawndale, Illinois. The kids were playing outside when she heard a piercing scream and knew it was her son. When she ran outside, she saw 2 massive birds flying in formation and chasing her son, pecking and clawing at his shoulders. The larger one sunk its claws right into his shirt and lifted him off the ground. ground. Ruth managed to fight them off and release her son, but only after they carried him a distance of over 35 feet. Locals believe that this was a modern day sighting of some thunderbirds, mythical creatures who have been mentioned in Native American stories for hundreds of years and now seem to be scaring a lot of people in the area. Next, number 8 now, we have Bloods Point Road. Drive about an hour and a half northwest of Chicago and you can find Bloods Point Road. It's been the focus of a number of paranormal investigations over the years, and not just because of its creepy name. Locals say that as you drive along it, trees begin to look like humans standing guard. Now they say they stretch out in an effort to grab you. You might think that sounds creepy, but they say that the trees are just attempting to warn you of things to come if you choose to continue down that road. Others say that the trees themselves are haunted, that ghosts congregate there. They say that if you're hidden, you can even watch the ghosts moving between the trees. All of this isn't helped by the fact that the road is home to the Bloods Point Cemetery. Legend says that actual hellhounds guard the cemetery gates. These evil dogs appear out of nowhere and attack visitors before instantly disappearing. On dark nights with a full moon, they've even been known to wander out of the cemetery and down Blood Point's road. Perhaps that's what the trees were warning against.
In our 8th spot, we have Walhalla Road. Located in North Columbus, this road is supposedly one of the scariest roads in Ohio. Legend has it that around 1950, a doctor by the name of Mooney and his wife and kids used to live along the road. It is said that one night Mr. Mooney lost his mind and murdered his family along this road. Apparently, if you walk this road in the dead of night, then you will see the ghost of Dr. Mooney murdering his family. You will also be able to hear them screaming and hollering. Like, the name of the road is literally Walhalla, like holla, like get it? Just a weird coincidence. Also, if you walk this road at night, it is said that you can see an eerie blue light appearing from the attic of the Mooney's old mansion. Coming in at number 7, we have Loveland Castle. Although it may sound like a nice place to go for a honeymoon, don't be fooled. It's not. Well, maybe if you guys have a thing for ghosts. Not judging. Now, this castle was actually handmade by a man named Harry Andrews back in 1929. Harry was obsessed with medieval times and architecture and decided to build this towering castle in the middle of the Midwest. Andrew passed away in April of 1981 at the age of 91. Loveland Castle is now a museum spot for tourists to visit. It is said that people have seen a shadowy figure roam the halls that resembles Harry. Typically, this ghost makes an appearance when something in the castle is going to go wrong. This may be Harry's way of still looking after the castle after passing away. In fact, one time, sounds of slamming doors could be heard upstairs. Upon investigation, they noticed that the septic tank was about to overflow. They believe that the slamming doors was Harry's way to warn them about this. And lastly, there's also said to be another spirit roaming the castle. This spirit is referred to as the Viking entity. Now, people believe that this entity is attached to one of Harry's antique swords in the castle. This Viking can be seen in a long black cloak, carrying a sword at his chest.
Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. For 2 weeks in 1934, the residents of Mattoon, Illinois were terrorized by a killer known only as the Mad Gasser. On August 31st, a man called Urban Rafe awoke to a strange smell in his bedroom that made him physically ill. He woke his wife up, who wondered if there might perhaps be a problem with the gas downstairs. When she tried to get up though, she found that she couldn't move her legs. The symptoms went away after a while though, and she found there was nothing wrong with the gas. Nearby, that exact same night, a woman went to check on her daughter, but found that she too was paralyzed from the waist down. The next night, a similar thing happened to another woman. The police began investigating, but found no clues. The local newspapers suggested that there was a madman out in the dark, creeping around and pumping this paralyzing gas into people's homes. He became known as the Mad Gasser. The panic in the town reached such levels that even the FBI got involved, but they too were unable to find a culprit. Reports have died down in the decades since, but some residents are on alert for a copycat Mad Gasser. Coming at number 6 now, we have the Enfield Horror. In April 1973, residents of Enfield, Illinois were all talking about a creature simply known as the Enfield Horror. On April 25th, a boy was attacked in his backyard by a creature with T-Rex-like arms, short claws, pink eyes, grey slimy skin and 3 legs. Later, the creature tried breaking into a neighbor's home where it was shot by a man named Henry McDonald. Daniel with a .22 caliber pistol. As the media picked up on the story, a news director for WWKI radio claimed to have actually taped the monster's screams as it ran off. He said he saw the creature cover 50 to 85 feet with just 3 leaps and then vanish out of sight. The police dismissed the reports and discouraged hunters from trying to find the creature. Others ignored the warnings and began investigating. Some parallels were found between the creature's description and some similar reports from the nearby town of Mount Vernon. Those reports came from the 1940s, leading some people to believe that this creature appears every 40 to 50 years, which I think means we are due for the return of the Enfield horror right about now. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Murfreesboro Mud Monster. In 1973, a young couple was parked by a desolate river in Murfreesboro, Illinois for a romantic night. Suddenly, a huge, wet, hairy beast just climbed out of the water. It was covered in mud. It let out a piercing roar which they would later say sounded like an eagle shrieking into a microphone. The couple fled without waiting to find out what it would do to them. For the next 2 weeks though, the whole town was in panic mode as more and more people had encounters with the huge albino beast which came to be known as the Big Muddy Monster. When police investigated, they found huge prints in the ground which seemed to match the size that others had described. When an officer leant down to inspect the print, he heard a horrifyingly shrill screech nearby. The police chief of the town said in an interview, "A lot of things in life are unexplained and this is another one. We don't know what the creature is, but we do believe what these people saw was real." Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Chesterfield Witch. Near the town of Arcola, in what is now known as Amish country, lies the small town of Chesterfield. Its cemetery is said to be home to a witch. Legend says that in life she stood up for the women who were being mistreated in the Amish community. In retaliation, they labelled her a witch and actually accused her of worshipping the devil. The community elders banished her. After that, nobody heard from her. She just disappeared completely. A while later, her body was found in a nearby field. They labelled her death as just down to natural causes and took her to a local funeral home. They put her body on display as a sort of attraction for locals to come and see a real witch. Eventually, after they had their fun, the woman was buried and a tree planted near her grave. In the years since, a deep superstition has grown around that tree. They say that it has bound her spirit to that grave. Legend says that if the tree ever dies, her spirit will be free to seek revenge upon the Amish community who banished her and displayed her body for entertainment. Some say that they've seen her spirit just standing over the grave, patiently waiting for the tree to die. Next up at number 3 now, we have the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. On Valentine's Day 1929, 6 gang members in Chicago were lined up and shot by 4 unknown assailants. It's thought that famous mobster Al Capone ordered the killings in an attempt to control organized crime in the city. 2 of the killers opened fire with Tommy guns, spraying the victims left and right, and even continuing to fire after all 7 had hit the floor. They even went round with a shotgun and blew off 2 of the victims' faces. They were brutal murders that shocked the city, and for decades after, dark tourists could actually go and visit the site and see the bullet holes in the brick wall which the men were lined up along and shot. When the building was finally demolished in 1967, the bricks with the bullet holes in were sold to various people, and some people claim they were haunted. The various owners complained of bad luck from the day they first bought these bricks. It got so bad that some of them even returned the bricks to the original site, hoping to break the curse. Even today, some Chicago residents describe a negative energy when they walk past the parking lot where the building once stood. They hear gunshots and see floating orbs, a reminder of this bloody massacre from all those years ago. Next up at number 2 now, we have the Farmer City Monster. In the spring of 1970, 3 sheep were killed near the town of Farmer City, Illinois. Officials put it down to just wild dogs. Soon after, 4 teens parked up in a nearby area of the woods. They got the fright of their life when a huge, hairy humanoid with piercing yellow eyes approached the vehicle. Somehow, their flashlights were enough to scare this creature away, and the teens quickly fled the scene. The 2 boys of the group returned later though to investigate, and again they encountered the creature. This time they noticed the smell. It was nauseating and actually forced them to retreat. The police found an area of flattened foliage which they thought was the creature's nest. Over the next 2 weeks, a number of sightings occurred, including one by a police officer and another by some construction workers. They said the creature sprinted out of the woods and crossed the road in front of their van. When the sightings were looked at on a map, some people thought that it showed the creature was on the move, heading northwest. If this was true, perhaps it's moved on. Perhaps it's reached its destination because it hasn't been seen since in the area, but locals say they are ready for its return. And finally at number 1 now we have Moon Point Cemetery. This is an old Civil War cemetery which has become an obsession of ghost hunters all over Illinois. It began as a family cemetery for a settler called Jacob Moon, but over the centuries it was eventually used by everyone. Of all the spirits said to haunt this place, one of them is perhaps the most famous, the Hatchet Lady. She's been seen carrying a hatchet while watching over her son's grave. She's also been known to shout at visitors to get out whenever they step too close to the area. Now on top of all that, the graveyard is also said to be home to the ghostly spirit of a young boy. Perhaps it's her son. There's even been sightings of multicolored orbs and light, and also the sound of coffin lids opening and closing in the dark.
Moving on to number 6, we have Riders Inn. Now, if you ever need a place to stay in Ohio, don't worry, I got you covered with a list of haunted inns not to stay at. Now, on this list is a bed and breakfast known as Riders Inn. In this inn, you can enjoy their restaurant, comfy accommodations, and of course, 3 ghosts. The first ghost that people have claimed to see is of a man dressed in a Civil War uniform. Now, both the other 2 ghosts are Roxanne and Susanna, the second and third wives of the inn's founder, Joseph Ryder. Apparently, Roxanne is a friendly ghost, whereas Susanna causes trouble around the inn. Inn residents have stated that they have been let into the inn by a woman in a white nightgown when the doors should have been locked. This was either the ghost of Roxanne or Susanna. Now, may I mention that this inn is literally located on a street named Painesville? Like, what are the odds? We are now at our halfway mark with number 5. The Witch's Ball. What's a scary legend without some witches? Myrtle Hill Cemetery in Medina County is known for getting quite the group of interested people. Among all the graves, there's one in particular that stands out, and that's because it's marked with a giant sphere. This story revolves around a woman that endured a lot of suffering throughout her life. As a result, she ended up murdering her family members. She would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling kids and their dog. Just kidding. But I love Scooby-Doo. Classic. But seriously, she would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for the town members who realized that her family just started to disappear. They believed that she was a witch and she was practicing her magic in the woods. As a result, she was stoned to death and buried under the giant sphere. Now, apparently she was buried standing up to make it hard for her to escape, and the spear was put on top as another precaution to make sure she never arose. However, it is said that her spirit has found a way to escape. In the wintertime, snow will not fall on the spear or the ground around it. On top of that, if you touch the spear, it will appear warm from the witch's energy, and in the summer, it will appear cold. People have also claimed that they have seen her figure in the woods by the cemetery or even seen an eye on the ball itself. Coming in at number 4, we have the Akron Civic Theater. Built in 1929 by Marcus Lowe, the Akron Civic Theater is a nice place to watch theatrical performances and even see ghosts. Although this theater is beautiful, it has a much darker past. Now, there is said to be 3 ghosts that haunt this theater. The first ghost is of a janitor named Fred. Fred apparently was the janitor for the theater and passed away one evening on his shift. Fred's ghost has been seen throughout the theater, and in fact, one person reported seeing him standing just outside the main entrance. It is also said that Fred becomes angry for anyone that dirties up the bathroom and will chase or attack them. No thanks. I'd rather hold it in if that's the case. The second ghost is of a man who is said to be a frequent theater goer or even of an actor that used to work there. He is said to lurk on the balcony and is fashionably dressed. And the last ghost is of a woman who died after jumping into the canal, which is below the theater. Her spirit is still said to roam the theater and is often heard crying.